Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of February. Today,
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all.
the show must go on. Prince William steps up as he addresses the King's cancer diagnosis at a gala in London.
Prince Harry jets home after 24 hours in the UK. This comes after he met the King for just 45 minutes during his whistle-stop visit.
Police are set to crack down on protesters using face coverings to conceal their identity in a bid to curb dangerous disorder.
The manhunt continues for the Clapham chemical attacker as police warns fugitive Abdul Zedi could die from his injuries.
Heavy snow is set to blanket parts of the country as the Met Office issues an amber weather warning.
Good morning. We've got amber snow warnings in force today with a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain. So make sure you find out all the details with me a little later on.
An American mother faces 60 years behind bars after her teenage son committed a mass shooting. Today we're asking, should parents get punished for their children's crimes?
And the taxman investigating more than 2,000 families over not paying enough inheritance tax. We're debating whether it's time to abolish it altogether.
And in the sport, Chelsea play well, shocker, and knock Aston Villa out of the FA Cup. VAR mistakes drop, but there's still too many. And could Boyzone be the next celebrity football club owners?
Good morning to you.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's out there.
I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Do you fancy a bargain?
Yes, always. Tell me.
A bit of memorabilia, all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was just drawn to this in the Sun this morning.
He always picks out the good stories.
It's nice, it's not a good story. It's some bloke who's paid £18,000 for a set of Winston Churchills' false teeth.
Oh, right.
There's a picture of them there looking
take that
very
back.
yellow. And why
They
would
actually do look really yellow.
I can understand why a museum might have them or something, but isn't that grim?
No, I don't even know why a museum would have that. That is really grim. That needs to be in the bin.
18,000 quid for a pair of someone's false teeth.
£18,000.
And it's only like a bridge.
Oh.
Not a full set.
It is literally 6 teeth spaced out. No, it wouldn't be for me.
So there you go. A little bit of history. I wouldn't chuck them out.
And they don't even look like a good set.
Well, they wouldn't be from back then.
No,
But anyway,
wouldn't be for me.
there you go. Let's move swiftly on, should we, to our top story this morning. The Prince of Wales has spoken about his father's cancer diagnosis for the first time and thanked the public for kind messages of support.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all. It's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus. So I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all.
Well, this comes as Prince Harry jets home to LA after being in the UK for just 24 hours. The Duke met King Charles for just 45 minutes during his whistle-stop stay, but failed to see his brother.
Well, let's talk to journalist and royal expert Pandora Forsyth, who's here in the studio. Morning, Pandora.
Morning.
I have to say, I'm quite impressed with how William handled that with a degree of humour.
Yeah.
But also, it's just nice to say thank you.
Yeah,
Actually.
quite, indeed. And, everybody has been shocked by the news of the King, I think, and I'm sure it came as a bit of a shock to them too, so early on in his reign, and then to get this news on top of everything else which has been going on between the royal family in the past couple of years. I'm sure this isn't what he wanted. And yesterday, when he broke his silence, the King, he said how sorry he was that he couldn't go to Granada, for instance. So I'm sure he really does want to get back to public duties, but health comes first, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Let's talk about Prince Harry, shall we, and this whistle-stop visit to the UK. I mean, you'd have thought he would have stayed for at least a few days, but it was over before it even began, it seems.
Yeah, well, I was expecting him to stay a little bit longer, if I'm honest. But it is Prince Harry. Fleeting visits are now his thing, aren't they? 24 hours with a 45-minute visit with the King, but no talk to his brother or to Catherine. I wasn't expecting him to speak to Catherine because she's recovering from her surgery and she won't be back out to business until Easter. But I thought maybe a reconciliation between the brothers, seeing as he was by himself in times of need. No, nothing, which is really, really sad. Really sad.
It is sad, though I do feel a little bit sorry, dare I say, for Prince Harry, in that the criticism is getting across the papers this morning. He's sort of condemned for not staying longer, and yet, if he hadn't come at all, he would have been criticised. It's like he can't do right for doing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this over many stories, haven't we? Whatever Prince Harry does, there'll be people saying, oh, well, good for you, but there'll also be people saying, well, why didn't you do more? So I do get that. But then again, if you think from Prince Harry's point of view as well, he only got 45 minutes with the King. But apparently this was because he was very tired, he needed to get back after treatment, which is totally understandable. But then again, there was also the story about where he stayed. He stayed in a hotel. Now, I was thinking perhaps he would have stayed in Clarence's house because, well, it would be empty. There'd be staff there. But, of course, he would been able to stay there, but I'm guessing because of security reasons, that's why he stayed in the hotel, because he had to clear that before he set off.
Are you surprised that Meghan didn't make her way over here with her husband to see the King? Because we've got to remember, this is the man that walked her down the aisle when she had nobody, when she'd rowed with her own father didn't come to the wedding, and she's always spoken so highly of the King.
Yeah, I think she still has a deep respect for the King and for the monarchy to some extent. They've chosen their path now. I think the fact that Prince Harry came by himself and Meghan didn't come wasn't a surprise. I wasn't expecting her to, because she'll be with the children at home. I'm sure she'll be sending her well wishes, and I'm sure Harry would have extended her well wishes to the King. But no, I didn't expect her to come. It would have been nice if she did come, of course, but at this point, they've chosen their path.
Would it have been nice? So again, the papers would have gone.
Well, the whole story would have been about them.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at all the papers today, and yes, of course, it's about William, but in every single paper, there's a section about Harry too. If Harry and Meghan were here, they do bring the Hollywood appeal with all the media frenzy and stuff with them alongside, and that's the last thing, actually, I'm sure the King wants.
Yeah. No, you can see that, can't you? But I just think, as a family, it would have been really nice to have seen a husband and wife who do have a lot of respect for the King to come together. If it was just such a fleeting visit anyway.
Maybe they're doing that over Zoom or something, I don't know. What about William? Because I might be wrong on this, I thought William was taking slightly longer out from royal duties because of Catherine.
Yeah,
so he's been brought back, so he really has stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, he has. His calendar is now totally full. And he's very much sort of learning from the best. He saw his grandmother, the late Queen, for ages, you know, for many, many years, taking the reign, and now he's learning from his father. And they've become very, very close. They have regular meetings in Windsor, especially before the diagnosis, which we've sadly found out about. You know, they're extremely close. They work as a team and working from the best.
And just on William and Harry, do you think there is any chance of reconciliation now? Because, as you said earlier, something like their King's cancer diagnosis, you think, would be the thing that would finally bring them together, but it doesn't seem to have done so far.
I think any chance of reconciliation soon will not be happening.
OK. Pandora, we'll catch up with you a little bit later on. For now, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, the government's bringing new restrictions into place that will allow police to arrest people wearing face coverings, as well as those who block roads. This is if they're out protesting, by the way.
Yes, Number 10 hopes that these measures will crack down on dangerous disorder.
Well, it follows months of pro-Palestine demonstrations and disruption by groups like Extinction Rebellion.
Well, let's speak now to former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley. Good to see you this morning, Peter. What do you make of these new laws, then?
Very much needed new measures that are going to feature in the new criminal justice bill. And I boil it down to 4 letters, FFRM. That's how I remember them. Firstly, face coverings at demonstrations. An officer will be empowered to tell you to remove a face covering. And if you don't, you will be arrested. Well, we hope they'll be arrested, because all these measures are going to need robust policing. So senior police are going to have to grow a spine in order to enforce these laws if they get onto the statute book. Then we have the second F, which is fireworks and other pyrotechnics, flares and the such like. We've had fireworks fired at police horses and the such like. So a new offence to cover that. Roads. How many roads have been blocked in the last few years by protesters, and the police have sometimes been utterly ineffective in clearing them away. So this law is going to bolster the powers available to the police to do that. And finally, the M, memorials, war memorials. There, it's going to be an offence to clamber aboard and therefore disrespect a war memorial. Quite right too.
OK. Let's talk about Abdullah Zaidi, should we? Because we've been talking about this for 8 days now, would you believe? How is he still evading the authorities, Peter?
The question on so many people's lips. The latest CCTV that was released by the Metropolitan Police yesterday is still from last Wednesday, so over a week old. But what it does show is that he crosses Westminster Bridge. In fact, he walks past New Scotland Yard. I mean, if they wanted to know where he was, they could have opened the window and had a look. But I'm not criticising them for that, obviously. It's just the route he took. And then he crosses Vauxhall Bridge as well. And he does go along roads and embankments that are very much adjacent to the River Thames. So, of course, many people are asking, was he contemplating perhaps jumping into the Thames and therefore ending his life as he took this rather strange route? It wasn't the route of somebody who's waiting to be picked up, for example, or otherwise helped to be spirited away. It's very unusual, and that question will remain, did he go into the water? As we know, rivers, seas, oceans can often be very slow to give up their secrets. The next big option, is he being harboured? Is he being fed, watered, have a roof over his head, transported and potentially given medical aid? Because the Met, not surprisingly, many of us have been speculating about this. His injury could indeed be fatal, especially if he suffers from some kind of infection or sepsis.
Yeah, but I mean, it would seem that the police have given quite a lot of credence to the idea that he may be harboured just by the fact that they put forward this 20 grand reward.
And also bearing in mind that the CCTV is over a week old. So it's not as if they're telling us that they've got him boxed in to a particular part of the city, an estate, a street, or some kind of defined area like that. It could be entirely probable that they don't have a clue.
But that is what is so baffling by this, Peter. I mean, yesterday, Commander John Saville literally said that. He said, well, he could have gone north, he could have gone south, he could have gone east, he could have gone west. He doesn't seem to know. It seems to still be at that theorising stage.
Yes, indeed.
Or is that just what we're being told?
No, I think the Metropolitan Police will be very keen to solve this, either by capturing him or saying that a body has been found, because it's still in the papers, all right, it's not on the front pages, but it's still getting a lot of airtime. We're talking about it now, of course, and they will be very keen to solve it. But analysing the CCTV is very, very time-intensive and resource-intensive, because you have to watch it in slower than real time, because people can appear and disappear very quickly. Sometimes you've got to rewind it again and have another look and then find another network to try and piece him step by step from one network to another.
Are we being unreasonable, then, in the pressure that we're putting on the Met to find him?
No, I think we're being entirely reasonable to ask questions. In fact, Commander Saville has thanked the media on more than one occasion for discussing the story. And here we are, reminding viewers and listeners there's a £20,000 reward out there for his capture. To harbour or help him could be a very serious criminal offence, which could get people in a lot of very deep water. So I think the police will be quite happy that we're still discussing the case.
OK, Peter, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, at 14 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming to the newsroom.
Well, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is going to ditch his £28 billion green investment promise due to uncertain public finances. Reports suggest the party won't abandon the policy altogether, but rather lower that proposed figure. The move comes after the Tory party repeatedly claimed the plans would lead to higher taxes.
A refugee from Afghanistan who was accused of spying for Russia also allegedly worked for MI6. A court heard the individual in question was stripped of his citizenship just under 4 years ago. According to reports, they accessed British military and intelligence secrets, as well as meeting King Charles and then Prime Minister David Cameron.
Finnair has announced it will begin weighing passengers before flights with their carry-on luggage to better estimate the plane's weight before takeoff. It's a controversial move, dubbed measuring passengers, began on a flight from Helsinki on Monday. They say so far more than 500 volunteer customers have participated in the weigh-ins. Would you do that?
Well, I don't
Would you
think they'd let me on the
volunteer?
flight. My hand luggage always weighs a ton. And I've said before, I'm lucky they don't weigh this because it wouldn't be allowed on.
Yeah, but it's not your hand luggage they're weighing, is it?
It's you.
It's you. That's the bottom line. It's because it's you getting on the scales with your bag.
Oh, it's you.
It's you. It's not just the bag.
And then is it all about balancing the plane? Is that the idea?
You do have to balance the plane and fuel consumption and all the rest of it. But are they trying to work out if they've got lardy customers who need to be paying more for the ticket?
Well, should you pay more for a ticket?
I don't know. I don't know.
The only thing that annoys me on a flight is when you're next to someone very, very, very large and they're taking up 2 seats.
Yeah.
And then you're squished. That happened to me recently on a long flight, and if this was my seat, I was sat in about a quarter of it.
But if you are a larger person, should you be penalised?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because you'd have to buy 2 seats, wouldn't you? Then
I don't know. I find it's a difficult one. If you've got a view on that one, gbviews@gbnews.com.
The seats aren't big enough. I think that is also.
Well, they could just make the seats bigger.
The seats a bit
but it's
bigger.
all about profit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Research from the University of Manchester has found that, on average, and this is really shocking, 50 veterans take their own life in the UK every year.
It's almost one a week, isn't it? Really shocking. Well, in order to look at this figure, Greater Manchester Police have implemented a new system named the Forcer Protocol in order to locate and support veterans who go missing.
Well, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper spoke to the founder of this initiative.
If Alan truly knew the pain that he caused his family and his children, there's no way he would have done what he done to us.
In 2020, Alan Forcer, a father, a husband and a veteran, went missing. He had suffered with PTSD as a result of his time in the army, and sadly, like so many others, he'd decided to take his own life. Now, Alan's former wife, Claire, is ensuring better measures are in place for veterans that go missing to make sure they get the help they need before it's too late.
Between 1996 and 2018, there was 1,086 veteran suicides, which is roughly 1 a week somewhere in the UK. So it makes sense to find them as soon as possible and implement that care.
What's the circumstances leading to them going missing?
If a veteran does go missing, it's vital they're found and given help as soon as possible.
Is a missing person a veteran?
That's where the new Forcer Protocol, founded by Claire in Alan's memory, is hoping to have an impact.
Veterans will upload their information onto Safe and Found online. When that call then comes into the police, we now ask every person that's reported missing to us at Greater Manchester Police now whether they've served in the forces or whether they're currently serving. That allows us to capture who is a missing veteran.
Right now, around 3% of the population of Greater Manchester is made up of veterans. But with around 1.85 million veterans nationwide, there's clearly much more work to be done.
Manchester probably isn't the main area for veterans. You know, we don't have any garrisons, we don't have any real barracks within Manchester. So that's why it's so important for this protocol to be rolled out nationally. We've already had 42, but what are other places in the country, what volume are they getting?
When Alan was first reported missing, he was only deemed a medium risk, despite Claire highlighting his multiple health concerns to their local police force. 4 years later, and Claire is determined that the Forcer Protocol will give other veterans that go missing the treatment and support they deserve.
It gives them the chance, doesn't it? Prevention is ultimately the cure. Preventative measures are always kind of, you know, I'm a big believer in the saying, you know, we need to go up or downstream and find out why people are falling in. There's been several, if not tens of missed opportunities to implement care for our veterans that have been lost to suicide.
In just 3 months since its launch, the Forcer Protocol has located dozens of missing veterans in Greater Manchester alone. But it's hoped that this is just the beginning, both here and across the UK. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Oh dear, I mean, it's shocking. It's really, really shocking, and more really needs to be done well. I mean, don't forget, you can get in touch with the Forcer Protocol if you need help. You can get in touch with Head Up, who we talk to a lot here on GB News. You can talk to Combat Stress, which will, you know, they're all standing by for you. Or, of course, you can talk to the Samaritans anytime, 24/7, and you can call them for free on 116 123. Or you can email them J-O, at samaritans.org.
Now, Annie Shuttleworth is here with your weather.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a dry interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
You're on, darling. We're on the telly now.
You can't do that to me with 10 seconds in the weather.
Sorry.
He just said, what are your sheep going to think when you go round to round them up later? I was like, I look like Little Bo Peep.
You do look like Little Bo Peep. It's a lovely dress, though.
And he said, where's your crook? Oh, dear.
Anyway, I tell you, you calm yourself.
I will.
Well, I tell the nice ladies and gentlemen that there is still plenty of time for you to grab the chance to win £18,000 cash in our Great British Giveaway. Here are the details you need.
This is your chance to win £18,000 cash in our very latest Great British Giveaway. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having an extra £1,500 in your bank account each month for a whole year. What would you use that for?
Well, congratulations, you've won £10,000.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd of February. Good luck.
This is you, darling.
Oh, thank you. Now, an icy blast is on its way. Found out more after this. This is GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Francis, Just Stop Oil have in the past broken the law. I remember distinctly the Dartford crossing. That ended up with 2 jailed, I believe, if I remember correctly. Is it ever justified in your view?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I mean, I would have to say yes. I mean, we're trying to preserve my life, your lives, the lives of your family, and it's not just the planet that we're trying to protect, it's the lives of millions of people. And, you know, we know from history that we have to break the law in order to put pressure on the government and to be listened to.
No one would doubt your sincerity in your views. You genuinely believe in what you fight for. But there are others who think differently. For example, there are Islamist extremists who believe that people will go to hell unless they convert to Islam. They will sincerely, perhaps, break the law in order to force people to convert. In their view, they might be saving people's lives for eternity. There might be abortion activists who say that babies are being murdered and to save their lives we need to break the law to stop people having abortions. Why do you get to say that your moral conviction is the one that's right and other people's individual moral conviction are those that are wrong?
So what's really integral to the Just Stop Oil campaign is the fact that it is a non-violent campaign. That's what separates us from the examples that you've just given. We're absolutely dedicated non-violence, both as a tactic and as a principle. So though we might be breaking the law...
If individuals take it upon themselves to break the law for whatever their course is, surely the way that we decide what society wants in general is democratic and within the law.
Well, of course, we know also that protest is absolutely integral to maintaining and upholding a democracy, and in particular, non-violent protest. I mean, I really can't express to you how severe this situation is, and I'm sure you know this.
Welcome back to Breakfast at 6:26. Stephen, what is taking place on Monday?
Yes, it's a very big day on Monday. It's the first big election event of 2024 because the Prime Minister's taking part in a special People's Forum live on GB News, 8 p.m. Over the course of the hour, he's going to take questions directly from you. So if you want to be there, go to gbnews.com/PM and you can register your interest today, or you can scan that QR code that's on the screen right now and you may well get your chance to chat directly to the Prime Minister on Monday.
And to Stephen Dixon, who's
I'll be there.
hosting it. He's going to be there as well. So that's an additional bonus. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic because it is about the people in power, the Prime Minister in this case, being quizzed by the great British public. I've had loads of messages on Twitter from people saying, please can you ask the Prime Minister this? And please, no, I can't. I'm not asking the questions.
He's the host.
You're asking the questions.
Yes.
So scan away or go to gbnews.com/PM because I'm not asking anything. I'm just going to sit there and smile.
But it's going to be great.
I might do the odd follow-up question.
You should.
If necessary, but it's not about me. It's about you.
And you are the man of the people, so I'm very pleased that you're doing that on Monday. It's going to be so good.
Have that on
I'm
a
looking forward to it.
T-shirt.
Yeah, I think you should have it on a T-shirt. It's true, though. It's a great choice.
It's
I
true
think it's going to be a fabulous night.
You're the people's princess, aren't you? That's what she did.
Self-appointed.
She did call herself that once.
Once
On air.
upon a time, and then never let me forget it.
No,
but
true.
do scan that QR code because that's going to be a really good event on Monday night. Really, really good. Thank you so much. Now, it's getting cold outside. Isn't it?
Yes, it is. The Met Office has issued an amber weather warning as snow is set to blanket swathes of the UK. Could get up to 10 inches over the course of the day.
Yes, forecasters have warned that this icy blast could lead to travel disruption as well as possible power outages.
Nathan Rao is here. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So what can we expect?
Oh, I know. Well, you know what? We were in sniffing distance of spring and winter's going to blast back and rattle us by the throat again today. Certainly if you're in the north, because that is where the snow warnings really are for today. If you take the Midlands upwards and go right up to Scotland, that is where there could be up to 10 inches of snow over high ground in the worst hit areas. If you're in the south, though, you might be wondering what all the fuss is about because it's going to be surprisingly mild as that warmer air comes in from the Atlantic. And that is really what is causing this sort of not unusual snow blast for the end of winter.
It often seems a bit warmer when it snows.
Yeah.
Why is that? Not good me trying to explain it because I'm not entirely sure.
It's very, very simple. What is happening is we have got a cold plume of air coming down from the north. This is Arctic. It's coming down from the north and sitting over the UK. And then we have got low pressure and a warm front coming in from the Atlantic. And where those two meet, where the warm air hits the cold Arctic air, that is always where you're going to get snow. And that is going to move up northwards through the coming days. And beneath that is going to be rain. There is a rain warning across the south today, and where that warm front moves upward, that is where you're going to get snow. So it's really, as that warm air, mild, moist air hits the Arctic air over the UK, boom, that's where you get snow.
How long is it going to last?
Not very long. Now, the weather warnings from the Met Office are out in force today with the amber warning for up to 10 inches in the north. That is going to last all day today and into the early hours of tomorrow, and that snow risk is going to move further north as we go through tomorrow. Then into next week, we've got lower pressure to the west of the UK and higher pressure to the east, and that is going to funnel some more mild air in. We may get a bit of cold on the east coast of the United Kingdom where that high is, but it's where those two pressure systems sit that is going to cause a bit of a... But really, in terms of the snow risk and the intense cold that we're going to get in the north, that's today and through the rest of the week.
And then are we into spring?
I wouldn't be so brave as to say that we are going to launch ourselves immediately into spring. It is looking like temperatures might return more towards normal than they are going to be today in parts of the country during the weekend and into next week. And then as time goes on, the long-range Met Office forecast is for slightly unsettled, maybe average to slightly below average temperatures. But it really is where this high sits, because we've got a big area of high pressure over the east of the UK, and that can, if it moves slightly more over us, bring in a bit of an easterly. We'll have to wait and see. But if you like snow, then head up to the Midlands northwards today and make the most of it. And that's probably all you're going to get. And obviously, when the temperatures rise as this warmer air moves upwards, you're going to get snow melt and rain, so take a brolly.
Lovely.
Oh.
Nathan, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's get all the sports news this morning with Breakfast Paul Coit. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
I like the snow.
Do you?
I do like a bit of snow. I've got to say, I was a bit disappointed there, Nathan, because I'm not going to see any snow. But I do like to have a little bit of snow because I still think it's fun.
It's nice if you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's nice
that's
to
true.
look at.
Apart from in the garden and then throw it around for a while, and I enjoy that. So would you like me to do some sport?
Well, I was just
Sorry,
thinking,
that's what I'm here for.
It was the shock of hearing that Chelsea has outclassed their opponents.
I know. How about that for a surprise? So Aston Villa, who were really good at home, and Chelsea, who are terrible away, and Chelsea have had a terrible time recently. You know, they shipped 4 in the last couple of games, and I thought they were going to get really beaten by Aston Villa last night. So they go out and beat Aston Villa 3-1. A complete reversal of fortunes. I don't know whether it's Thiago Silva's wife. Did you hear about this? We talked about this over the last couple of days. Thiago Silva, former Brazilian captain, he's like the oldest, he's like 40-odd now, and still playing for Chelsea. His wife... had actually tweeted that they need a change, pretty much to get rid of Mauricio Pochettino, which is kind of not probably a good thing. No. Her husband's got to go in and deal with him. So he had a little word with Thiago. Thiago was left out of the side yesterday, so I don't know whether it was what she did actually had any influence. She then put an apology on Twitter as well, saying, you know, I just want the best for the side, still not saying I want him to stay. But anyway, they ended up winning, so...
Good on them.
So well done, Bell Silva, well done, Maurizio, well done, Chelsea, who have managed to go through to the 5th round of the FA Cup, and they will play Leeds United next.
And well done Nottingham Forest as well, who won on
because
penalties.
they went through on penalties. So
yes,
they
very good.
play Bristol City, and they will play Manchester United in the 5th round. So they were the 4th round replays yesterday.
Are we going to get a change with VAR?
No.
OK.
Next question.
Thank you very much.
No, I tell you what it is. The complaints that continue. There's so many mistakes in VAR. There's apparently 5 less at this point this season than there were last season.
Is that all?
But it's only. But there's still mistakes that are being made. There were 20 bad mistakes already made. But the thing is, I mean, there's a referee there looking at the screen. It's a very nice picture there. And basically... they're reluctant to show it on the big screen.
Why?
So for those on the radio, we've got big screen with checking penalty and handball. When you're in any stadium, you don't actually get to see the decisions made, which is something that's been lobbied to IFAB, who they look after all what the referees do and the lawmakers. So they're going to look at them, and hopefully we'll be able to see in the stadiums or stadia what's going on. Whereas at the moment we can't.
Can you tell us about Boyzone, please? Because they might be a new owner of a...
You'd probably see them as a very old band.
No, I love Ronan Keating.
Right, OK.
Love him.
Well, you know, we've seen Ryan Reynolds with what's going on at Wrexham taking over. There's talk about Robbie Williams.
Becoming a trend.
Port Vale. It is. So Boyzone at Chorley FC. There we are. Boyzone there could own Chorley. So Ronan and Shane and Keith, they're going to be at the FA Trophy clash with Solihull. Now, Chorley are in discussions that could see Boyzone become the face of the club. Can you imagine? Tom Clark, who's Chorley's COO, said that he was thrilled that the trio would be attending and says it has the potential to bring our town into the limelight like never before. It's not 1994 anymore.
Well, we love them for a reason.
You know? That's a very good point. Yeah. Well, if you're saying that, I just wonder whether something gets exciting, the ball goes forward, they'll all stand up and everybody thinks they're going to do the chorus at the end of the song, maybe. I don't know. Or is that Westlife? I get them confused.
Well, no, they're very similar.
They are very similar, yeah.
But anyway, could well happen.
Well, you know, help the team.
Wonderful for Chorley.
It might help the team when the going gets tough.
Oh, stop.
It's two.
No.
Two.
Can you go for the triple? You don't know anymore, do you?
Got any more that you
Can't think of any more.
Well, at least maybe if they get the trophy, they could say it's coming home now.
I don't know that one.
No, you wouldn't do it, no.
I'm enjoying the fact you've got a Wikipedia page up of Boyzone's hits.
Cheating.
Sorry, I don't know.
I'm giving away your secrets.
I know, I don't know much about Boyzone, to be fair.
That's good. I was thinking, where's he got all of these from?
Yeah, there you go.
The little help of Wikipedia. Thank you, Paul.
I have nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Good. I have nothing else to add.
Good. Now, did a Russian spy really infiltrate the British intelligence service, MI6 no less? We'll find out in a couple of minutes.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I'm interested in your Royal Protocol story there about how the Queen would not be expected to visit the King more than once at the hospital or whatever. What would the benefit of that be? I'm just trying to work out why that would be.
Well, I suppose it's to avoid lots of people outside making a big... Panicking and all the photographers. But otherwise, I think it's very strange. It's a sort of not showing your emotion, whereas Camilla will show her emotion because she loves him so much.
But any normal person would go and visit their loved ones in hospital.
Yes, they would, but you see, they never went with them, even when they went in. And only rarely would they go maybe once, if it's quite a long stay. But otherwise, they don't. They must talk on the phone. But I think this, you want to hug, you want to chat, you want all those things. And I think, good to her. I mean, she's so good. She's following all the routine.
Yes.
And what is expected of her, more so, because she's been working very, very hard the last month. And but when it comes to actually showing her caring for her husband and the King, she wants to be there with him.
And I believe he's probably expected to be continuing with his red boxes whilst he's in there, still working, but from his sick bed.
No, I don't think he can take the red boxes into hospital. I think they will be ready for him when he comes out.
Okay, so complete rest from work.
And he might have some paperwork, but I think those are so confidential that they can't be taken in. I mean, if he falls asleep and they're there, you know, you don't want to risk it. I'm sure he's got protection all the time, but I think it's not done. That's not done.
Well, he changed the location for the procedure, didn't he, so that the taxpayer didn't have to pay for two sets of security at two different hospitals.
Yes.
At 6:38, it's time to see what's making the papers today with the editor of Spike, Tom Slater, and the journalist and author Susan Holder. Good to see you both this morning. Tom, can we start with the front of the Mirror? Shame on you is the headline.
Yes, this follows the huge backlash to Rishi Sunak when, during Prime Minister's questions yesterday, he went on the attack against Keir Starmer. He started listing off all of the U-turns that Keir Starmer has made, one of which around gender ideology and what is a woman. And, of course, this was immediately leapt on by Keir Starmer. He said, for shame, and the reason for this being the fact that the mother of Brianna Jai, who's the transgender teenager who was tragically murdered, was not in the gallery at precisely that time, but was certainly visiting Parliament at the time and was later there and met Keir Starmer. So this has naturally been leapt upon by various people who want to land a blow against the Conservative Party. It's been presented as shameful and so on, but I struggle with this because of the fact that I feel like if anyone leapt on this issue and tried to make it about this horrendous murder, it was Keir Starmer, to be perfectly frank. was it ill-advised to use that attack line at that particular point in time? People can make that argument, but he wasn't talking about that particular case.
No.
He was trying to use it against Keir Starmer. People call that a gaffe, but I don't think
in that sense it was clumsy, was it? I mean, clearly it was scripted. It was written by some spad who got it down as a comeback line.
Mm-hmm.
It was clumsy at this time, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I agree with Tom. I think it was Starmer who brought the Branagai's name into it, actually, and pointed out that the mother was there, which was also very kind of unnecessary to do that. I think that's very unfair on her. I think she's dealing with enough. I don't think she needs pointing out that she's actually there and present. So, yeah, I think it was more opportunist from Starmer in this instance than I actually think it was from Sunak.
What do you think of Branagai's father's comments then, who has condemned Rishi Sunak and that jibe as dehumanising to trans people?
No, precisely. And I just don't see it with the greatest respect. And I think we need to be a little bit careful here, insofar as taking one absolutely horrendous, tragic case and then saying, therefore, we should have no discussion about this area. I think you can do two things at the same time. You can be immensely sympathetic.
It's how you discuss it, though, isn't it?
It is, and I think what Tom's saying, I mean, you're doing that really, really well because it's a very hard line to navigate, and especially with the Brianna case so fresh. I mean, nobody wants to say anything to upset that family or compound what they're obviously going through.
And they're entitled to their views on this.
And they certainly are.
And, of course, they should be listened to, definitely so. But I think that when Keir Starmer made that comment and when everyone leapt on to Rishi Sunak about this, there was a very clear undertone to it, which is to say, shut up. You can't talk about this issue. And given the fact that particularly gender-critical women, lesbian feminists in particular, but not exclusively, have fought for a very long time to be able to talk about what a woman is. Correct. Who have fought for a very long time to talk about women's spaces. To now say, oh, now we've got a reason to clobber you and say you can't talk about that anymore. It felt like that's what was being attempted yesterday. And I don't think that is at all sensitive to this case. I don't think it's at all sensitive to the issues involved. And I think that if we're talking about who tried to weaponise this case or exploit it or treat it insensitively, I don't think it's the person who was standing at the dispatch box making his usual jibes at Keir Starmer, to be perfectly frank.
There are calls for Rishi Sunak to apologise. Do you think he should do so?
No, I don't think, and I don't think he will.
OK. Let us know what you think about that one.
Yep.
Should you? I was interested, Jackie Doyle-Price, Dame Jackie Doyle-Price, who is she still a member of Parliament? I think she is, isn't she? And she said yesterday she thought it was the comments by Rishi Sunak were ill-judged, but they have been weaponised.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fair assessment, really. Susan, let's have a look at the Daily Mail, should we? And Prince William.
Yeah, so as you've already covered today, Prince William was out and about last night and and everyone is kind of saying coped incredibly well with the situation that he's been put in, and actually made a speech that referenced the situation that his father is in with his recent cancer diagnosis. And, yeah, I just feel it's... I feel very personal about this, that I have had experience of somebody very close to me being diagnosed with cancer and we didn't tell anybody. And there was a reason we didn't tell anybody, which was we didn't want the constant questions and the constant examination and the constant, are you OK? And because it's just so hard. And I think to be in the royal family at the moment and having to do what they're doing, my heart goes out to them, really, because they are so in the spotlight with this and they are being kind of examined so closely, every little nuance, every look, every, has he lost weight? Has he got a nervous tick?
I hate to say it, because part of me thinks it's absolutely none of our business, but would it be helpful if we knew what cancer he had? Because there's masses of speculation now, which I find really distasteful.
Yeah, but I think if he's able to keep some part of that private for now, then I understand why, because I think there is so much being looked into, and there is so much, there'd be so much speculation anyway. And to be honest, if we did know what it was, all everybody would be doing, we'd have all the lists of how many people tended to die from that. Yeah. It's not helpful when you're going through it. But I do think what was interesting was Prince William, as you say, he did reference it. He did thank everyone for their messages. He also made a good joke about the fact that Tom Cruise was in the audience because it was an air ambulance event and they were getting money for a couple of new helicopters. And he did joke with Tom Cruise about, can you not borrow them for Mission Impossible, please? Because they might not come back in the way that we would like. But more interesting than that, I think, everyone's talking about how William has stepped up, and he has. But Princess Anne yesterday, the Mail today have gone on what she wore, which is a coat which is identical to one the Queen wore. It looks to me like it could be the same coat. It's a purple coat, and it actually looks possibly the same. So either she's wearing some of the Queen's old clothes, which is the very Princess Anne thing to do.
Oh, I can imagine it being
Absolutely, and why not? But they've gone on that, which is an interesting little thing if she's wearing it. But what they haven't done is actually, yesterday I did see the list of the things that Princess Anne stood in on an investiture, flew to Nottingham and visited a medical centre and a fabric warehouse, and then came back to London and did an award ceremony at the Science Museum. I mean, this is...
non-stop.
It's ridiculous.
That is really
For anyone who
hard work.
says the royal family don't work hard, I really think they're not looking in the right place. But then when you just see, oh, she's wearing a purple coat, maybe you miss the kind of, what she was wearing the purple coat for.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point.
Yeah, she's the hardest working royal, they say. But
and she'll only have to work harder.
She doesn't shout about it, does she? Tom, let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph, shall we? This is the front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning. Migration won't save the UK from debt crisis.
Yes, there's a comment piece in the Telegraph today by an OBR executive who's called David Miles, who is essentially trying to urge the government to look at some of the more fundamental issues of the economy, namely the fact that you have this out-of-work crisis. You have millions of people, in some cases, some cities, you're talking about a quarter of the would-be workforce, who've basically been signed off sick. Those numbers really rocketing up after COVID, and that just being kind of brushed under the carpet because of the fact that in an era of mass migration, you can kind of make up for that quite easily, and also because of the fact that when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming in each year, kind of artificially inflates the GDP figure, so it can make the economic forecast look a lot healthier than it actually is, where if you divide it up by the number of people in the country. So it's essentially urging the government not to reach for that lever of mass migration as a kind of palliative for all the economic problems, and to look at the fundamentals, which is this issue of... When you talk about the issue of the benefits bill, that can sound like you just want to be miserly and you say you want to, take away from people. What I think is the more fundamental issue here, though, is has there been a very large number of people who have just been kind of put out to pasture? Because it's easier for the government to just not have to think about it. It looks good on the unemployment figures because they're not seeking work. And given that in a lot of these cases, you're talking about people who are signed off might be for anxiety, might be for stress. These aren't paraplegics who are incapable of working in any meaningful sense. I don't think it's good to be in a society, economically or socially, when you have so many people who are just kind of signed off you go, we don't need to worry about you anymore. Work, being in society is actually really important, even for people who have quite serious physical disabilities.
Oh, yeah,
so
I agree, but it's getting the right work. I mean, I know someone in particular who's severely disabled. He would love to work. He's only a young man. He wants to get out and work. His brain ticks along faster than most of ours do. But getting a job is difficult.
Yeah, but also...
It needs to be encouraged.
It does need to be encouraged, but also you're right, and it is actually quite good for your mental health as well, to be achieving and to be, self-sufficient in some way, or at least contributing. And also, surely there's a kind of an overlap as well of if the benefit system was perhaps looked at a bit more, then the migration might not be quite as attractive to certain migrants who are coming as well. So it does need to be looked at.
Can we have a look at The Guardian? And Michelle Mone apparently telling the government that she was not going to benefit from this PPE deal.
Correct.
Which netted her 29 million.
Well, yes, and it's not hearsay, it was in an email, and it was an email that she sent specifically to kind of exonerate herself and say, this is for the record. So in the email, she not only said that she wouldn't have, there was no conflicts whatsoever, she wouldn't get any benefit. She also did a kind of big job of bigging up her husband, who was the other person involved in the whole situation, saying Doug is a very philanthropic individual who wants to help the NHS. And very soon after that, those leaked, the emails have now been leaked. They landed their contract worth 203 million, of which 65 million profits were paid into their bank account. So, yeah, but it's in her own words and they are emails. So this is all part of the National Crime Agency conducting an investigation into this. And, yeah.
It doesn't smell. I'd say it doesn't smell right, does it?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I do wonder who's advising the moans because of the fact
well, it's anyone.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it just seems to be like a sort of shopping trolley the way they're going about this. But because they've been kind of banged to rights on this stuff for quite a long time, haven't they? But then they've tried to go on this. This is a witch hunt. Why didn't Rishi Sunak stand by us? Giving that terrible interview to the BBC in which saying, yes, I lied, but I did it for noble reasons. I just don't understand how they think they can get themselves out of this, not least with all of this evidence piling up there.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Tom, let's look at the front page of The Times, shall we? Very dramatic story.
Yes, Putin spy infiltrated Britain's intelligence is the story here. It's also a story about asylum and the increasingly dysfunctional nature of it. So this story focuses on an individual, he's not named here properly, but he's just referred to as C2, who came to the country in 2000, claimed asylum as coming from Afghanistan, fleeing the Taliban, and ended up working his way into the British security services. So he worked for GCHQ, he worked for MI5, MI6. He's even suspected to have met then Prince Charles and a former Prime Minister. It then transpired that they worked out that he was, or they believe he was, an asset of Russian intelligence, and that he'd actually, between Afghanistan and coming to the UK, had spent 6 years living in Russia. So as a consequence of this, when he returned back to Afghanistan, I think it was about 2019, he was stripped of his British citizenship and is currently trying to appeal that, basically. But given the fact that, you know, coming off the back of that awful acid attack story where you've got someone granted asylum after they've had 2 sex offences to their name. Even before that, in recent weeks, there was the Albanian crime lord who was granted leave to remain. There was also a ISIS propagandist from Sudan who was granted leave to remain. You just think, what do you have to do not to get granted asylum in this country? I mean, I get that in this case, they did catch on to him. They have stripped him of his citizenship. They do want to keep him out.
Yeah, but he's appealing it, which I find quite interesting. If he's being accused of being a spy...
Yeah, there's a lot of very... I tried to get my head around this story several times. We were talking about it, and there was a lot of very strange, nuanced kind of details in that. I mean, the fact that he's lying a lot, kind of, well, yes, he's a spy. That's kind of goes with the kind of the territory. But also the fact that he was apparently... There's an allegation that he was groomed from the age of 5 to be a spy. And I wasn't in Russia, and I wasn't sure that well, maybe there are kind of spy nurseries in Russia. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing. But it is all very strange.
And he has Russian citizenship as well, and gained that during his time in Britain, as far as I can tell, which sounds a bit of an alarm bell.
Well, I mean, you think that would raise some alarm bells to MI6 and GCHQ.
Well, and it has, and to be fair, they have stripped him of the citizenship.
Well, after he's met the PM and the King, Prince of Wales.
But that's being a spy, isn't it? That's what they do. And if he was working for us as well as a double agent, that's kind of... There's a lot more goes on kind of beneath the surface of what we're able to read here, obviously.
I suppose it is an interesting question about... Because one would assume that this happens all the time, that you have members of foreign intelligence agencies, they think, go over there and try and infiltrate their intelligence agencies.
Exactly.
The ease with which it was done, and also the length of time it seemed for them to catch on to it. Even if, you know, this guy's completely innocent, which seems somewhat unlikely, but who knows, it's still the fact that, as I say, those red flags should have been pretty early, surely, but apparently not.
You would think so.
But once he's appealed, what's his end game? Because everybody now... I don't understand how he's going to operate in future, although we don't know his name. Yeah, it's odd.
Well, maybe he must be claiming he's not a spy if he's appealing.
But once they think he is, they're not going to kind of go, oh, well, now you've appealed, we don't think you're a spy anymore. There's always going to be a suspicion, isn't there?
Well, there is, but that doesn't seem to stop anything with the asylum system, does it, at the minute? Can I ask you both about these new rules and regs coming in about protesters and the idea that they want to ban people using fireworks and flares, right? But face coverings, all that sort of thing, should it all be got rid of?
Well, I think face coverings are... I mean, they only benefit the person whose face is covered, doesn't it, really? It just hides their identity, and everybody else then... doesn't know who's done it, and that person could do anything. They could use fireworks, be violent, use racist language, whatever they want. And how are we going to... I think face coverings possibly is something that does need to be looked at.
I'm very wary of any of these sorts of clampdowns. I mean, obviously, fireworks and violence and so on, of course. I mean, that surely should be covered by the law at this point anyway. But there's also, in these sorts of protests, you think these people are banged to rights, they're covering up their identity, but there's others where people might not want their identity to be known when they go on a demonstration. Do we want that to go out as well? So I suppose that's a bit of an issue.
Well, let's ask the Police Minister, Chris Philp, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. Why is it necessary to bring in these new rules and regulations?
Well, we're concerned to make sure that where protests happen, they don't cause unreasonable disruption to the public. That's why we're making some corrections following recent legal cases where people say that protesting is a reasonable excuse for disrupting other people. We don't think it should be, so we're clarifying the rule around that. We're also making sure that our principal war memorials are respected. Nobody thinks our war memorials should be desecrated or disrespected during protests, and that's why we're protecting our principal war memorials. We also think letting off flares at protests is unacceptable. Letting off flares is illegal already, but what we're doing is making the possession of flares or fireworks in a protest illegal and giving the police stronger powers to ensure people don't wear basically masks and face coverings at protests, which I think makes it harder for the police to identify people who are committing criminal offences. You know, obviously the government supports the right to protest, but we, don't support members of the public having their day-to-day lives unreasonably disrupted. We don't support war memorials being disrespected, and we don't support people covering their face to get away with committing criminal activity. And that's why we're announcing these changes today, and we're going to make the changes via amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill coming back before Parliament in just a few weeks' time.
It's day 8 of the manhunt for Abdul Azedi, the man wanted in connection with the chemical attack in Clapham. How has a man with a significant facial injury in a city covered in CCTV managed to evade the authorities for 8 days now? How have the police not found him?
Well, the Metropolitan Police are using all the resources at their disposal to find this man, including the extensive use of CCTV, as you say. They've appealed for anyone with information to come forward. Members of the Afghan community have said the same thing. Anybody with information should contact the police. If they've got information about where he's staying, if anyone is harbouring him or letting him stay somewhere, please come forward and give that information to the police. He has committed what is obviously a terrible, terrible attack, and we need to find him as quickly as possible. So please, anyone that knows anything, doesn't matter what the circumstances are, please urgently contact the police with that information.
Are there questions to be asked of the Metropolitan Police, though, in the sense that this has taken a lot of resources, understandably so, and of course they want to find this man, but there are questions to be answered, aren't there, about why it is taking so long?
Well, look, London is a city of about 9 million people. It's got something like 3 or 4 million residential properties in it. It is a very large city, but the Met are dedicating all the resources they can, and I would just ask the public to help. The public are the eyes, and it should be the eyes and ears of the police as well. And anyone with somebody somewhere has information about where he is, and they should, given what he's done to that poor lady and her children, please, if you have information, you must come forward to the police. It is, of course, an offence as well to harbour somebody or to assist someone in evading the law who's committed a criminal offence. So I just urge people to come forward with information.
OK, Minister, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. I feel a bit sorry for the Met in all of this. There's a lot of pressure on them. Clearly, they want to find him as quickly as possible. It's just getting it done.
Yeah, especially if he's got help. Well, do stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yeah.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. Yeah. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of February. Today,
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all.
the show must go on. Prince William steps up as he addresses the King's cancer diagnosis at a gala in London.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry jets home after just 24 hours in the UK. This comes after he met the King for 45 minutes during his whistle-stop visit.
Police set to crack down on protesters using face coverings to conceal their identity in a bid to curb dangerous disorder.
The manhunt continues for the Clapham chemical attacker as police warns that fugitive Abdul Azedi could die from his injuries.
Heavy snow set to blanket swathes of the country as the Met Office issues an amber weather warning.
Good morning. We've got amber snow warnings in force today with a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain. So make sure you find out all the details with me a little later on.
An American mother faces 60 years behind bars after her teenage son committed a mass shooting. We're asking this morning, should parents get punished for their children's crimes?
And HMRC are investigating more than 2,000 families over not paying enough inheritance tax. So we'll debate whether it's time to abolish it altogether.
And I'll have some sport for you. Is this the turning point for Chelsea as they knock Aston Villa out of the FA Cup? Emma Raducanu loses in Dubai, and the conspiracy theory surrounding Taylor Swift and Sunday's Super Bowl.
I'll be interested in that.
You will. Good morning. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
We were talking earlier on about Finnair, who are weighing passengers before they get on the plane now. I said, because it's all about, the seats are very small anyway, aren't they? And say, well, that's all about profit. Terence has been in touch. Morning, Terence. Says aeroplanes are not all about profit. Anyone who's worked in aerospace will tell you the top priority is safety. Aeroplanes aren't buses. Weight loads and distribution are extremely important for many reasons that most members of the public are not aware of.
Phil says if you drive a motorhome, the weight of your passengers is part of the payload, which is the weight that takes it up to the maximum overall load of the vehicle and its content. We are penalised if my wife or I are heavier than average. We can carry less fuel, food, water, etc.
And Vic says maybe larger people should all be made to sit together. Then they might be prepared to pay a bit more to get two seats. That's a little bit harsh.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's just, yeah, I mean, I can understand why Finnair are wanting to weigh people getting on, but you should penalise someone because they're a little bit larger.
And surely you wouldn't actually be allowed to make someone stand on a set of scales. At the moment, it's volunteers, isn't it? It's about 500 volunteers. I wouldn't be volunteering. I don't know who would.
No. You're just worried about the weight of your luggage.
Yeah.
You've got to get on the scales with your luggage.
Yeah. It'd be shameful.
I've got to be honest, I wouldn't fancy it.
No, I don't think anyone would. Do let us know what you think about that one. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, the Prince of Wales has spoken about his father's cancer diagnosis for the first time and used the opportunity to thank us for our kind messages of support.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all. It's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus, so I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all.
Well, this comes as Prince Harry jets home to LA after being in the UK for just 24 hours. The Duke met King Charles for 45 minutes during his whistle-stop stay, but failed to see his brother.
Well, let's talk to journalist and royal expert Pandora Forsyth, who's here. Morning, Pandora.
Morning.
What are we to make of, first and foremost, and I think what matters the most, is the fact that Prince William has addressed this, because I just think it seemed to me to be the right thing to do, just to address it in the way that he did by saying thank you.
Yeah, and also note the fact that he led with Catherine first. Catherine's very much his priority. Obviously, the king, from a business perspective and a father-son perspective, he's obviously brought that into the picture. But we don't want to forget about Catherine. That's the reason why he's been off for 3 weeks and why, you know, he has been brought back early. But he is still very much saying she is in the picture. We've not forgotten about her. You know, she's very much being the mother, but also recovering at home with the children.
How do you think he's feeling in all of this now? Because he's got an awful lot of spinning plates now. Obviously, he's got his wife, who is poorly at home, recovering from her operation. His father, who we know was going in for an operation too. But now we have this cancer diagnosis. He's really got to step up, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does. I mean, as we noted earlier, you know, he's had all the best training for these moments. And I'm sure he'll very much be on the phone to the king all the time whilst he is in Sandringham recovering from the various treatments that he's having for his cancer diagnosis, and sort of helping him lead the way, as it were, and standing in for him when he can't make those face-to-face engagements now.
All right, what do we make of Prince Harry coming over and having that one meeting with the King and heading back again? He would have been criticised if he hadn't come. He's being criticised now that he has come. I'm not sure what to make of it all.
No, 45 minutes as well. You travel 5,000 miles or so and then 45 minutes with your father, stay in a London hotel and then go back home again. I don't know if I was Harry, having 45 minutes after I hadn't seen my father in about, you know, a year or so since the late Queen's funeral. I think I'd be thinking, oh, well, that's a bit short. But the King did need to get on the helicopter back to Sandringham with Camilla. And, of course, this has been the first face-to-face meeting since all the revelations which came out about, you know, Harry's opinion of Camilla. And we do know the King very much stands by the Queen on this. And this will be the first time Harry saw the Queen as well. So that's a whole nother dynamic to have to deal with. A little bit awkward, I imagine. But nevertheless, this is progress, I think, for them. I genuinely do think this is progress because it allowed a father and son to have a conversation, you know, in private. Well, we say private. Let's hope it does stay private for the sake of the King's health at this moment in time, where they can speak openly about things. I don't know how much can be said in 45 minutes, though.
No.
Do you think it was best that Meghan didn't accompany her husband? Because it was a very short trip. I mean, she could have got her mum to watch the kids and come over and support her husband in that way. And we know that she does. She does like the King, doesn't she? She's spoken before about how charming he is. You would think that she would want to support her husband in that way.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that she didn't come with him because they know that apparently the children are, you know, the priority back in California. But also saying that she will need to come over at some point, when that moment will be. But as soon as she comes over, the media frenzy which will be attached to that will be huge. And I think Harry is also aware of that. He knows he was only here for 24 hours. And look, he's on the front of most of the papers today, taking up a lot of space. So if Meghan was here too, I think it would just create a whole nother debate about, well, what do they speak about? You know, I just think it just distracts from the whole issue at hand here. And Charles wants the conversation to be about, you know, spreading awareness about cancer and people getting checked. And as we know, earlier diagnoses, you know, does help save lives.
OK. Pandora, thanks very much indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the government's bringing in new restrictions to allow police to arrest people wearing face coverings during protests, as well as those who decide to block roads.
Yes, Number 10 hopes these measures will crack down on dangerous disorder.
Well, it follows months of pro-Palestine demonstrations, of course, and that road disruption that we've seen for a long time by groups like Extinction Rebellion. Earlier, we spoke to the Police Minister, Chris Philp.
War memorials being disrespected, and we don't support people covering their face to get away with committing criminal activity, and that's why we're announcing these changes today, and we're going to make the changes via amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill coming back before Parliament in just a few weeks' time.
Well, let's speak to former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. What do you make of these new measures, Peter?
I welcome them. I think they're necessary, not only because protesters have gone way beyond what is lawful protest, but also because we have a police service these days which is so largely led by the fluffy, woke, overeducated, liberal kind of elite of policing, that they spend more time interpreting the law than actually enforcing it. And that does have an effect on the front line. If they feel they're going to be unsupported, then they want to be exactly spot on with whatever power of arrest it is that they're utilising. And these are very much needed. We've seen people climbing on war memorials. I'm glad that's being outlawed. It's utterly disrespectful. The blocking of roads by various protesters, yes, that's caused huge disruption, and the police have been very slow to use existing legislation. So perhaps this new legislation will give them a kick up the rear end that they most definitely need. Fireworks, pyrotechnics, flares, yes, all of that, and face coverings. They have been used as an excuse for lawlessness.
They have, by some. There will be others who argue, Peter, that, you know, you can attend one of these things and cover your face. It doesn't mean you're not being peaceful in your protest.
Yes, well, I'm afraid the law is going to change that. And if the police say that you have to remove that face covering during a demonstration, during a protest, then you will have to. That's absolutely right. If you cast your mind back to one of the earlier pro-Palestinian marches, as it dispersed towards the end of it around Victoria railway station, there was massive disorder, and most of those people were waving a Palestinian flag and had a face covering and were committing acts of violence. So I think it's a welcome step. My fear is that if they get it onto the statute book in the next few weeks as part of the new Criminal Justice Bill, we later have a change of government and a change of party in power. Will this legislation get repealed? We'll have to wait and see.
Peter, I want to ask you about Abdul Zaidi, day 8 of this manhunt. Are you surprised that it's taking this long to find him?
I would very much like to have seen him in handcuffs by now, and alternatively, if he's taken his own life or died of his injuries, I'd like a body to have been discovered. But as you well know, I am always swift to criticise policing when it's necessary and when I think it's appropriate. But Commander Saville, during the course of this hunt, has said, if you report a sighting of him, we will act swiftly. Well, I can report that yesterday morning, a reported sighting of a Zaidi occurred very close to where I live, at my local railway station. And within a very short space of time, that area was, I quote from somebody who was there, swamped by police. So it would appear that the police are backing up what they've said. If you do think you've seen him, if you do report him, then there will be a swift police response.
OK. Peter, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Now, Anish Shuttleworth is here with your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a dry interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
So, Nathan, it's getting cold.
It is.
Tell us more.
It's getting cold, but really only sort of take the north of the country from the Midlands upwards. That's really where the warnings are today for snow and the colder weather. If you're in the south, if you're below the Midlands, you might wonder what everybody is talking about, but it's actually quite mild down here. But yes, there are some weather warnings in force today for snow. The amber warning, which is the more serious weather warning for up to 10 inches of snow, that's in Wales and Yorkshire and the sort of Midlands area. Elsewhere, there is quite a widespread yellow warning for snow through today and into tomorrow, but elsewhere it's rain. And as we go through the weekend, it's going to be more rain.
Which isn't a nice thing to look forward to. I tell you what, I noticed it was very windy yesterday.
Yeah.
So is that going to continue? Because obviously with the snow, drifting is a real problem.
Yeah, no is the short answer.
Okay.
I mean, I take that back. There is going to be a bit of bluster. We've got low pressure, sort of, which is causing the snow at the moment, where that comes in, and that warm front associated with the low pressure bumps into the cold air, which has come down from the Arctic. That's where you're going to get the snow. And of course, with low pressure, there is a bit of wind, obviously, with that. Going further ahead, though, we're going to come under the influence of high pressure through next week, and that causes more settled conditions. And so the outlook, the longer outlook, is for more settled conditions. A bit blustery, a bit wet and a bit windy, but nothing. We're not talking about huge gales. There are no warnings in force, really, for strong winds through this colder period. It's really for snow and ice and rain, and that is the picture.
Yeah, but in the meantime, especially if you're in the north, there could be a lot of travel disruption, couldn't there, if you're trying to get about?
Yes, that's right. Now, where I mentioned there's going to be the most snow, and that is going to be of the higher ground, and the 10 inches really is the worst hit areas. Elsewhere, it's up to 4 inches. Traffic
Still a lot, isn't it? You don't need a lot.
Yeah, and traffic
chaos.
Yeah, and Traffic Scotland are actually got a couple of advisories out for that area. Obviously, that's where you're going to see those rural areas, more traffic disruption. And I imagine where the amber weather warning out from the Met Office is in force, that is going to bring some risk of disruption. It's always worth pointing out when these things happen, if you are travelling through the area, to have a look and see what's going on there before you travel, to make sure you're well prepared and allow a bit of extra time if there is heavy snow.
Yeah, and have a blanket in your car.
And a flask of tea and all that sort of thing. You've got a decent footwear.
Phone charger.
That's a good one.
Shepherd's crook.
And the shepherd's crook for you. You never know when it might come in handy.
Don't use stuff as well.
All right, Nathan, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, there's still time for you to grab the chance to win £18,000 cash in our Great British Giveaway. Here are the details.
This is your chance to win £18,000 cash in our very latest Great British Giveaway. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having an extra £1,500 in your bank account each month for a whole year. What would you use that for?
Well, congratulations, you've won £10,000.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd of February. Good luck.
Nathan's got me thinking now.
Oh dear.
Do you have an emergency?
I can smell something.
Wow. Have you got an emergency stash in your car?
Well, no,
a blanket and a flask and things like that?
We haven't got a flask, but we've got wellies and stuff already in the car, and Ready to go. So we're ready to go. We're ready for anything.
Well, I feel like I need to prepare myself now. Is this something that people have?
Yeah.
Are people generally got little packs in the back? Well, let us know if this is something that you have in your car. Do you have a blanket and a flask and a phone charger and all these things you should need if there's snow? Because there is going to be snow, especially if you're up north. Do let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, now, still to come for you. Should parents be deemed responsible for their child's crimes? We're going to debate that next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has made her much-anticipated appearance before the Scottish COVID inquiry today. It comes after allegations emerged that she deleted key pandemic WhatsApp messages, used the pandemic to push her own political agenda. But let's just cast our mind back, shall we, to August 2021, when Sturgeon was asked if she'd hand over all her WhatsApps to the inquiry. Here we go.
I think if you understand statutory public inquiries, you would know that even if I wasn't prepared to give that assurance, which for the avoidance of doubt I am, then I wouldn't have the ability. This will be a judge-led statutory public inquiry.
Which, for the avoidance of doubt, I am. OK. Well, you weren't, were you? But fast forward to today, and she was much less forthcoming.
WhatsApp messages between yourself and Mr Yusuf and Ms Lloyd were produced by you. Where did you get them?
They were provided to me through the Scottish Government.
But did you delete them?
Yes.
Did you consider yourself, against that background and your considerable ministerial experience, to be precisely the right First Minister for the job?
No, that's not how I would have thought of it at all. There's a large part of me wishes that I hadn't been.
All right, then. I'm joined now by Tory MP Lee Anderson. Lee, are those just crocodile tears?
Well, it looks like crocodile tears to me, Patrick. I mean, first we had the missing camper van. Nobody knows where that is. Now we've got this nonsense. We've got these burner phones, dodgy £5 phones from wherever they bought them from, WhatsApp messages going missing. It all looks a little bit dodgy to me. I mean, she's bleating on there, she's crying on screen. This is not cutting no ice. You know, it's crocodile tears. It makes you wonder what the SNPs are all about, Patrick. It looks... I mean, the people that have burner phones, let's be clear, people that have these dodgy phones where you can't trace them and disappearing WhatsApp messages, these are normally criminals, these are drug dealers, and you know what, these SNPs are no better than criminals.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:21 now. Do you live in the northeast, or can you get to the northeast on Monday? Because on Monday at 8 p.m, live here on GB News, the Prime Minister's taking part in a special People's Forum. Now, over the course of the hour, he's going to be taking questions directly from you. So if you want to be in the studio audience, if you've got a question you want to ask the PM, it's very easy to register your interest. You go to gbnews.com/PM, or if you've got the technology, scan the QR code, which is on your screen right now. It should be a fantastic night. Who knows what is going to be asked? I'm hosting it, and I have no idea what is going to be asked. I won't find out till you do, and the Prime Minister does. So it's going to be a fascinating night.
No, it really is. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, it should be great. It should be great because it's about real people addressing their concerns to the Prime Minister. That's what democracies are about.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really good event. Do get involved. There's the QR code on your screen now, and we will put it up on the screen here as well throughout the programme. So keep your eyes peeled on. There it is, right on cue. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well.
Now, here's an interesting one. A 45-year-old mother in Michigan has been convicted of involuntary manslaughter because her teenage son murdered 4 students at a high school 2 years ago.
Yes, prosecutors claimed that Jennifer Crumley was guilty of negligence after allowing her 15-year-old son to possess a firearm. Her husband is due to face trial next month.
So today we're asking, should parents face jail time, and let's be honest, you could face 60 years for this, if their child commits a crime?
Well, joining us now to debate this is founder of community charity Oasis, Steve Chalk, MBE, and former advisor for the Clinton and Bush administration, Steve Gill. Good morning to you both. The two Steves, going to get a bit complicated, so we'll go by full titles. Steve Gill, you are over in the States, so tell us what you make of this case. Is it right that this mother faces 60 years behind bars for her son's crimes?
I think generally it'd probably be unfair to hold parents accountable for the actions of their kids. I mean, kids are wily and sneaky and can get away with a lot of stuff. But in this particular case, you'd have to be a dullard to have ignored all the red flags. They put a 15-year-old kid in possession of a handgun. They didn't, restrict it. He had mental disturbance issues. He was writing, notes of what he was going to do at the school. The school called the mother in and insisted that he be taken immediately for mental health treatment. She refused. And then we have, 4 dead kids. So across the board, probably you can't make parents like a guarantor of a loan. But in an instance where there are this many red flags, the parent has to intervene and follow the advice of the counselors.
Steve Chalk, when there are red flags, they have to be followed, don't they?
Yes, they do. I think the problem for us here in the UK is we know very little except what we read in the headlines about this case in Michigan in the States. But my work here in the UK is with thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of children and their families every day. We run 54 schools. And in actual fact, for the Ministry of Justice, we are just, in a month and a half's time, going to open an alternative to a youth jail. So children will be sentenced to us for violent crimes. And what I've learned over the many years of working in this area is that parents have a responsibility. Of course they have a responsibility, but much of this is intergenerational. So you'll find that the parent themselves hasn't been parented. And of course, for us all, there are huge pressures on us as families and tensions for our children. So how many mums or dads do I know that say, I'm so worried about my child, he's mixing with the wrong people, there's nothing I can do about it. And then there's the social media thing in on the top of it. It's more complex normally than just saying it's the parent's fault.
That's an interesting point, Steve Gill, because it's effectively saying a sentence like this, I know obviously it's stateside and not here in the UK, but a sentence like this is a very simple solution for what is actually a very complex problem.
Well, again, keep in mind there are 4 dead children because this parent not only put a 15-year-old in possession of a handgun, but then did not take it away when there were all these red flags being indicated, restrict the access to that weapon that led to the disastrous deaths. Again, I would agree with Steve that the mental health issue is something we've got to pay a lot more attention to. And there are a lot more stresses on kids today than there were 20, 30 years ago. And we're not just seeing it in an incident like this, but when you see these massive throngs of kids going in and looting a store, creating, physical violence, with 10 or 12 kids on one person. We have a violence issue that goes beyond guns and certainly goes beyond what a lot of parents may be able to handle.
Steve Chalk, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's the question of where does being a bad parent cross into criminality, which is what this court has found in the US. I mean, clearly there were red flags in this case where the mother should have intervened. She didn't, but she couldn't see the future, could she? She wouldn't know that her son was going to go into a school and murder 4 people.
No, all of that's true. And we don't know, or I don't know anything about her mental state, her mental health state either, which is why I think it's easier for me and best for me to just look at the wider picture. What I do know is this. I sat in the front room of a mum who'd just lost her son, one of our students. He'd been stabbed to death. And she sat there in tears. And in that moment, though, she said to me, today, 2 of us have lost sons. I've lost my son, and the boy that killed my son, his mother has lost him, and it could have been the other way round. The reality is that she understood that. I thought that was an extraordinary thing for her to say in her attitude to this. We know, don't we? You know, we've got 32,000 children in our schools, and they're all in socio-economically deprived areas. We know so much about the tensions of gang life and knife crime and et cetera, drugs, all of those things. So it seems to me that society has to take responsibility for this in the end. We've got to do this together.
OK. Steve Gill, Steve Chalk, we'll leave it there. Good to talk to you both this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, you will have an opinion on that story. Do let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Still to come, Paul's got the sport. Morning, Paul.
Morning. I've got to tell you, it's pretty eclectic what we have for you today. Aston Villa lose to Chelsea in the FA Cup. And how about this? How a tasty strawberry confectionery can affect an Olympic gold medal.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Welcome to the show. Superb stuff, great footage. So you're right in the thick of it there. What's the mood on the ground?
Well, I've left there now. I've actually now come to that EU Council summit that I was talking about. It's still pretty chaotic. The entire city of Brussels has been completely clogged with these tractors, sort of 3 abreast in most of the roads across the city. The people of Brussels aren't particularly happy. I mean, this is sort of reminiscent for some people of the Just Stop Oil protests, you know, people gluing themselves. People are unable to get to hospital appointments, and there's a lot of upset about the destruction that's happening on the streets of Brussels today. But on the other side, there's also the protests, which the farmers are saying that EU green laws simply are not able to fit with what they need to do to keep their businesses going. And just before the protests happened, we saw the European Commission actually make some concessions to the farmers' protests. And this is on the demands that were put on them to set aside somewhere in the region of 5% of their land for regrowing for biodiversity. A lot of the farmers have said that's not possible, and the European Commission has said that they can delay that coming in. So they have won a small concession with these protests.
And Jack, there's a feeling as well, a huge dissatisfaction that the European Union has managed to find 50 billion euros in aid to send to Ukraine, and yet farmers in particular are on the receiving end of net zero targets, taxation on diesel and endless red tape. So many farmers, Jack, saying they're measuring ditches to see if they have to drain them or not. There are minimum requirements on the width of battery hen enclosures. Endless red tape, as Jeremy Clarkson pointed out in Clarkson's farm in Britain. They've simply had enough, and they're shouting, Ursula von der Leyen, we are here.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport at 7:32 with Mr. Paul Coit.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good
very
morning.
nice to meet you. So it was nearest things.
Very nice to meet
Johnny,
you.
nice to see you. Very nice to see you.
All right, let's talk FA Cup.
Yeah, let's do that. Chelsea could be on the turn, but the thing is, we see it with teams like that. All of a sudden, everything looks great, everything clicks under Mauricio Pochettino. It's all been a bit of a disaster. They keep shipping goals. They go up to Aston Villa in the replay of the 4th round of the FA Cup, and they won 3-1, and they were excellent, and Aston Villa were not. Whereas we expected it to be the other way round. So Chelsea fans are now thinking, is it a new dawn? I think under Pochettino it will work, but it's taking time. Everybody's going to be patient, but maybe this is the start. But maybe it isn't. But we'll have to see. But they were very good yesterday. Also Forest as well. I know you're going to mention that. Ellie, Bristol City.
Won on penalties.
They did win on penalties, so it went after extra time to penalties. So Nottingham Forest are through. They play Manchester United, and Chelsea will play Leeds United in the next round of the FA Cup.
Tough time for the Brits in the tennis, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, I'm getting a bit bored with saying this. Emma Raducanu loses, Andy Murray loses. Emma Raducanu, also, we should look at it, complete different ends of their career, although Emma Raducanu, when she was just, 18, 19 years old, she wins the US Open. She's only 21 now. She lost to Ons Jabeur in Abu Dhabi last night.
She's very good.
She is very good, but the thing is, I still want to have faith in Emma Raducanu. There's still a great player there. She's been injured. I know everybody's going, oh, she's rubbish and it's never going to go anywhere.
I feel really sorry for her, actually.
You know what? So do I.
All that fame and all that pressure, and now it must be heartbreaking.
It's almost like the reverse of a career, isn't it? Because all the great stuff came, and then it's now all the work is coming afterwards. So hopefully, I really hope that she can turn things around. Whereas Andy Murray the day before lost his 6th match in a row. It was in straight sets in Marseille. Thomas Mashak, and it's getting to be names that we're not too familiar with now. So how it's going to go, whether he's going to make it to Wimbledon, I don't want it to peter out.
We wanted glory at Wimbledon. It's not looking.
No, it does tend to be that going that way.
Oh, I feel like I need to cheer myself up with a slice of strawberry gâteau.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Might make me do better for the rest of the show.
Well, put it this way. If what was in the strawberry gâteau may actually make you feel...
Look at that.
The story here, Kamila Valieva, the 15-year-old ice skating sensation, although now banned for 4.5 years for taking illegal substances. There she is. She's an amazing skater. You may remember a couple of years ago in the Winter Olympics. She's only 15, and she danced or skated in the team event, and then they won gold medal. Now then it came over to the singles and then it came out that she'd actually tested positive for an illegal substance. They allowed her to skate. She was a disaster because it was obviously on her mind. But now, after all this time, they've actually had the hearing at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and her reasoning for actually taking trimetazidine, which is a heart medicine.
All right.
God, it's a long way to get there, isn't it? But a 4-year ban, and it's a positive test apparently caused by a strawberry dessert, such as this tasty dessert we have a picture of on the screen at the moment.
So what? They're saying there was pills in the dessert?
It gets better. Her argument is that her grandfather takes the trimetazidine for his heart, and he prepared this little tasty treat for his granddaughter, very nice, but stupidly what he'd been doing is cutting up his pills with the same knife that he was serving that tasty dessert to Camilla with. So therefore, she took the drug, and then that's how she failed the test. What do you think about that one?
I'm not entirely convinced.
Well, I don't know. I think I could be persuaded on that one.
I'm
glad you're not with the Court of Arbitration for
Sport.
She goes, she looks so nice, she looks so friendly.
Oh, that sounds legit.
But seriously, I've got to quickly say, I do feel sorry for her because, again, she's a 15-year-old, she's a minor, and if there's any drugs that are going on, it's all done by coaches and people around her, and that's where the unfortunate part.
And she could have just wanted a pudding.
Well, yes.
Ellie, don't we all?
I know.
Don't we all?
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
OK, we're out of time. We'll talk Taylor Swift in the next hour.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, make sure we do.
Very good stuff. Conspiracy, it's horrendous and scary.
Lovely.
OK.
All right. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Don't go anywhere. We've got the newspapers heading your way very shortly.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Lots of people have different ideas, but principally a conservative approach to getting growth is to reduce taxes so that people, ordinary people and businesses can spend more of their own money to invest and grow the economy.
So the theory is that you cut taxes and that then pumps more money into the economy.
Exactly right. And then people, it's not government that are creating wealth. It's individuals, businessmen, companies that create wealth. It's the private sector that creates wealth, that the public sector then taxes and spends.
I get the theory, but one of the criticisms of you, and I think one of the criticisms actually of all political parties, is they appear to be incapable of cutting government spending.
That's the key. I mean, and I think when I look back, is that we should have had a credible plan to reduce the increase in spending. Now, that's often a difficult concept to explain.
But it's in line with inflation, etc.
That's all right. So when you're slowing the increase, it means, 1 year you spend £100 and the next year you spend maybe £101 as opposed to going up to £110. So the actual level isn't going down, but you're slowing the increase. And that's very much what I tried to do. And actually, looking back, the one thing I wish I'd done, was to present a credible spending plan at the same time as the tax cuts that we announced.
You had a go, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and that analysis will go on for some years to come. We have Jeremy Hunt there as Chancellor now, hinting quite strongly now there won't be any tax cuts, but the truth of it is, under 14 years of Conservatives, for a variety of reasons, the tax burden has risen.
That's right.
To the highest since the Attlee government, way back in
80 years,
1951,
years,
whatever it is.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's 7:40. Let's see what's been in the papers for you this morning with the editor of Spike, Tom Slater, shut up you, and the author and journalist Susan Holder.
Who are you telling to shut up?
This one, she's the worst person ever to work with. It's a nightmare.
I think that's a bit harsh, to be fair. That means he loves
no
me.
wonder I'm going grey rapidly. I had dark hair when we started working together,
No, it's not true.
No, I love you, really.
I love you too.
All right, Tom.
Distracted now.
I was. Let's have a look at it. It's because all the names we have a lovely list produced of things, but all the names are actually sort of missing.
It is Tom, yes.
It just says M on mine, so it's Tom to Tom. Daily Mail, help me.
Yes, it's Tom. BBC's plan to lure back Radio 2 listeners. You've got more on this, Tom.
Yes, so as many people know, the BBC have been absolutely shedding audience, particularly on their radio stations. Everyone was really bemused by the fact that...
Because they're all tuning into GB News Radio.
That might be what it is.
Our figures are going through the roof.
Exactly. I mean, no one is pointing out the elephant in the room here. But the way they're trying to get around this is by launching a whole news station. So they're launching a bunch of kind of sister stations. So BBC Radio 2, it's shed a lot of listeners because they got rid of Ken Bruce, who was very beloved. And again, replace him with kind of series of younger recruits. There's been this obsession on the part of the BBC with chasing an increasingly younger audience, despite the fact that 17-year-olds don't listen to BBC Radio 2.
No.
They've never really listened to BBC Radio 2. They don't listen to the radio at all, to be honest. And yet, with this desperation to sort of chase that audience, they've ended up destroying their audience. So you've had Ken Bruce go to other stations and pick up millions of listeners. So now what they're trying to do is basically launch a sister version of Radio 2, which just sounds like the old Radio 2, playing music from the 60s and 70s and 80s. And you just wonder when the penny will drop.
Do we know what they're calling it?
There's
2.0.
Radio 2 Extra.
2 Extra. It's not mentioned here, but people should write in there.
Why don't they just... I mean, isn't that just throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit?
Well, they're trying to chase the audience that all the stations that just play hits and don't really have featured presenters. So your greatest hits or that kind of thing, where you're playing non-stop music. I think that's what they're thinking that is the way to go. But it seems to me there's always been this obsession with kind of out with the old and in with the young, with radio in particular. Actually, I mean, TV does happen obviously the same way. But I do think that audiences, I think they always think audience want to see themselves on the radio or hear themselves on the radio. And actually, you want good presenters. I don't think it matters to the audience so much how old the presenters are. I think they put people out to pasture at a certain age when actually they're good presenters. And what we want to hear is good music and good chat. And it doesn't matter what package that comes in as long as it's good. And you do have to wonder about how old the producers are who are... and then they call things nostalgia. Well, they probably mean 90s music.
Yeah.
That's nostalgia nowadays. But actually, again, I don't think people, as we get older, we just like music that's good. And actually, I could listen to music that was made last week or in the 1950s. And depending on which track it is, I might like it or I might not like it. I think they try... It's all about the pigeonholing, and they do tend to get it wrong, I think.
So the BBC have shot themselves in the foot with this one, you think?
I think so. It's just another example of how they really don't understand their audience. It'd be one thing if it was just, like any other radio station or TV channel, but their audience are also the taxpayer, which is it gives them even more of a responsibility to try and understand this stuff. But fundamentally, they seem to think that Britain is like a kind of 17-year-old wokester, when that's really not the case.
No.
And it doesn't matter how many times they get reminded of this fact, they don't seem to recognise it.
I've never listened to Radio 2. Mainly because I've always thought, I can't listen to Radio 2, I'm too young.
Well, yeah.
And I'm 50.
But who's told you that? You see, you shouldn't have been told that ever, because then why, this is for you and this is for you. Just let people listen to what you want, but make it the best it can be. That always seems to be kind of the point that's missed to me.
Susan, let's stay with you, shall we? Because this one caught my eye this morning on the front of the Daily Express. It's Rishi Sunak. Yes, because they've got lots of differences, haven't they, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson? The door might...
You would think they hate each other.
You would think. But apparently the door is open.
Well, the door is open a little smidge, I think, is what you would say. It's a jar, but not even quite a jar. It's just like you can just peek around the crack, maybe, in as much as they're making quite a lot of the fact that Rishi Sunak has said that he's proud of the work that he and Boris did together. They worked well together for a long time, and in the end, there are, documented differences, but we do talk now and again. Now, if you can read into that, he wants Boris back, Boris is coming back, good on you. I'm not reading into that.
Is that all he said?
That's all he said. That's all I can find that he's... I speak to him on occasion, is what he said. Pressed further, it seems he hasn't spoken to him this year, although this year's not very old, so that doesn't really mean anything either. But I think they've got a 2-page article about how Boris might be back from that. Now, so for some people, that might be wishful thinking. For other people, it might be their biggest nightmare. The interesting thing is that the PM hasn't ruled out, it says here, making use of Boris's talents in the future. Well, I would argue we'd have to find out what they are first. But that's my opinion.
I occasionally talk to you. It doesn't mean I'm joining Slade.
Well, it doesn't. Well, I'm not in Slade, of course.
Well, no, you're not.
But my husband was once. Yeah. Well, exactly. You can extrapolate out quite a lot of things. I also don't think Boris Johnson might be very keen to come back when you read the other little piece that's in the Daily Express about how much money he can make. So, for instance, now, also, you do have to take all figures printed in papers about what people earn with a pinch of salt, I know. But on that basis, even if we halved some of these, he earns £25,000 a day for speaking engagements, £750,000 a year for a weekly column, writing a weekly column.
How much a year?
£750,000 a year for writing a week.
From the Mail.
That's what they say. It's estimated. Now, these are the ones that really interest us, OK?
The weekend.
Given that we are here on GB News and Boris will be joining us, apparently,
oh, yes.
Did you know that he's reported to be being paid a sum said to be in 6 figures? Interesting. And given that my books are published...
How many figures that is?
It's a lot. It's over
100,000.
Yeah. And also, my books are published by HarperCollins, great publisher, but my payment from them does not top £1 million, which is what he's reportedly paid for his memoir. So if he's doing all that, Why would you want to come back? I just don't know that you would.
He is an election winner, isn't he? And we've seen Lord Cameron come back. Do you think we could see Boris?
Well, I think maybe if they were to bring him back, it would be as, you know, they want him as a sort of cheerleader during the election, because you've seen it with Sunak in recent days. He can't do the connecting with ordinary people thing. He's just not very good at it. But it is a reminder of, like, how...
We shall see on Monday, Tom.
Yeah.
We shall see on Monday.
Talking to the people on GB News.
Exactly.
Stephen Dixon.
But he has this tendency, and you've seen it when he does, on the rare occasions he does bump into the public, he doesn't really adjust. He has a tendency to say, you're wrong, and let me explain why. And that just doesn't really work, particularly in an election campaign. Maybe that's what they're thinking about, but it is a reminder of how little authority he has, that he has to bring David Cameron back in order to kind of bolster his position. Now, I know this is a bit of a non-story, but it is a reminder of how people aren't exactly happy with the leadership at this point. I mean, what's next? Give Liz Truss another go?
Oh, gosh.
You know, give her some sort of position.
We never know with these pop cons now. I don't quite know what they're trying to achieve. Cons.
Yeah. Would you call it pop-con? Would you use the word... Would you make it con when you're trying to kind of build something that you want people to trust you on? Is that, I think there's a fatal flaw there. Did nobody bring that up in the meeting?
You know, I have to say, that never occurred to me. I was just thinking popcorn is all I could think of.
I think the full name is always worse, popular Conservative. It sounds like they're kind of giving themselves a compliment. Like,
you can't call yourself popular.
Yeah.
Sounds like Comic-Con to me.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Euros. Should we, Tom? Just because the Sun is very worried about us poor Brits who may be heading to Germany, who may be shocked at just how strong the beer is.
Yes, are they taking the pills? Is the headline here. It's very Sun
grip. I think Brits know how to drink a beer.
This is actually Foreign Office advice warning British football fans when they go to Euro 2024 about how strong the beer is and they should watch out for themselves. The quotes are really quite special. It says, beer can be stronger than in the UK, so drink responsibly. Know your limits and respect local laws. You may not be let into the stadiums if you are too drunk.
Come on. Have you ever seen Susan Holder with a stein? Goes down in about 2 minutes, doesn't it, Susan?
Well, I mean, but beer can be stronger in Germany. That will sell more tickets. That's, I mean, I don't understand how it's a warning when it's just going to be, yep, that's a good idea then, isn't it?
And another great excuse to put Harry Kane in lederhosen on this splash here, which I'm...
Very good.
Is that what they've done? It's all about great. They've done the... Mind you, I don't know if I like this or not, Top Sun on the front of the Sun there, like that, because it's where are you? Oh, there you go. Because it's Tom Cruise and Prince William.
Quite liked that.
But yeah, except Top Sun at the minute.
Let's not make it about
isn't
that.
it?
It's a bit of a dig.
Yes.
Let's talk about a supergroup, Susan.
So if you... any music fans out there, and particularly any people who like guitarists, this will be very interesting to them. So Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits has put together a charity single. It's raising money for Teenage Cancer Trust and Teen Cancer America. And what he's done, unfortunately not in the same room because it would be impossible because some of these people are no longer with us, but he's put together a re-recording using... If you name any guitarist you've ever heard of, it does seem like they would be on this record.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's a re-recording of Going Home, which is the theme from Local Hero, and it's going to be released in March. So I will run through just a few of them. They've also recreated a...
Brian May better be on it.
Brian May is there. Brian May is number 31 here in my list of 54 people. And there's a picture. They've recreated the Sgt. Pepper album cover with all the different pictures of all the people that featured. So you've got people like Pete Townsend, Hank Marvin, Tony Iommi, Joe Walsh, David Gilmour, Sheryl Crow, Joan Jett, Ronnie Wood, Slash, Bruce Springsteen, Eric Clapton. Any guitarist that you particularly love that I'm missing? James Burton, who is Elvis's guitarist. Ry Cooder. I could go on and on and on. If you're anything into music or guitarist, check it out, because that is an amazing thing. Apparently the producer who put it together said he cried because they also used some of the some footage from Jeff Beck, who obviously who's died, and it's I think it's a 7-minute instrumental, but all these people are featured, so that is something quite different and incredible.
That would be great, actually, and say raising money for a couple of great cancer charities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Actually, I'd buy that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, me too.
And there's actually some guitars have been donated by some of the people involved, which is going to be proceeds from the sales of guitars signed by some of the contributing artists is going to happen at Newcastle United's match at St James's Park on March the 2nd. Oh. So that's all linked to it as well. So yeah, anyone into guitar music, that's one for you to check out. And that piece with a big picture of it is in today's Times.
Brilliant.
Susan, we'll stay with you because we haven't got long and I want you to get onto this story. It's a man is going to let strangers decide.
Well, he has done already, hasn't he?
He has.
Oh, he's already let them, has he?
Yeah, basically. So a man in Liverpool had a £100,000 inheritance from his mum. And he sat on it for kind of 10 years, felt he'd got enough to live on, didn't really need the money so much. So he wanted to give it to charity. But instead of making that decision himself, he decided to let strangers, like a consortium of strangers, pick where it should go. It all went eventually to vulnerable and economically deprived individuals in Liverpool. Oh. But the way he did it was he wrote letters to random addresses in the area of Liverpool he lived in L8. Quite a few, like hundreds of letters, quite a few replied, and then he picked 12. So that's how he put together...
Picked 12.
Just randomly picked 12, or depending on how they replied. But he then put these 12 strangers together, and, yeah, he sent random to 600 addresses, 38 people responded, and I picked 12 to take part. He then had 4 sessions of deliberation where all those people put in their idea. It's an amazing thing to do. So is it too much hard work?
I just think it's slightly crackers. If he wants to give money to charity, why didn't he decide to give his money to charity?
Because he wanted, I think...
Spending 600 letters?
Well, yeah,
how much? That's about £1,000 in stamps.
But perhaps what he was trying to do, and I'm not going to speak for him, but the man's name is David Clark. I think what perhaps he wanted to do was to get a reflection of the area he lived in from people who perhaps knew other things that he could give money to that he might not know about.
Put a notice on Facebook. But I think this is like...
or a poll.
I don't want to... The idea is quite nice in a way. I just think he's gone about it in a very
But not everybody's on social media. You might reach people who don't do social media. You might reach a different demographic. I think you could go back and forth on the pros and cons of it, actually. But I know what you mean.
It's like assembling a sort of jury.
It is like assembling a jury. Interesting. An interesting idea.
It'd be better than, because especially... I'm surprised it didn't just all go to animal charities or something, because that tends to be the way these days. So it's nice
All right, thanks both. We'll see you a little bit later on. Here's your weather.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a drier interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi, Rishi Sunak here. Join me for a special GB News People's Forum Live on Monday the 12th of February. I want to hear about the issues that matter to you. For your chance to be part of the audience and to put your questions to me, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com. See you there.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
When you listen to Nigel Farage's assessment there, do you feel that maybe this is as good as it was going to get, given that we had the pandemic and it was inevitably always going to be a bit of a mixed bag?
Well, I think it's a bit of a poor excuse from Nigel there that they haven't done it properly. The facts are, Nigel, that it's not worked. It's not going to work. Yes, we will rejoin. I mean, are we better off for it? Are they...
Can I jump in there, Charlie? We're going to rejoin under which government? Because Labour aren't going to do that, unless you don't think...
But I mean, it's going to be unavoidable not to join, because I think it's getting worse and worse for us. I mean, let me just say this. Are the NHS better because we're out of Europe? No, they're not, because they're not employing more staff. Is the building trade better off? No. Is travelling abroad or to the EU or staying in the EU, are we better off? No. Are we better off because foods rise because of the EU? No. Are we better off with imports and export? No, because they're taking longer. The overall result is that we're not better off. The killer point here is 57% of the public will now vote to remain. 33% would leave. Surely that's the telling point.
It depends on the pollster, Charlie, because we were talking to a very good pollster earlier who said there's no enthusiasm for any change in a year. Maybe 10 years, they might be thinking about it.
Belinda de Lucia, let's bring you in. I'm sure you want to react to what Charlie said.
I mean, who would have thought that the UK wanting to run its own affairs and making our politicians more accountable would be so revolutionary? EU Parliament voted a majority to get rid of the vetoes, the last remaining scraps of democracy that the EU had. Now, luckily for EU citizens at the moment, you know, it means a treaty change to actually go forward. But that is the mood. The ever closer union. We have dodged a federalised, globalist, international, power-gobbling, anti-democratic organisation, and that's worth more than a few trade and travel perks for a few wealthy people in this country.
Hear, hear. Belinda de Lucia, Charlie Mullins, great to see you both.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Just coming up to 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of February. Today.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all.
Prince William steps up as he addresses the King's cancer diagnosis at a gala in London.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry jets home after 24 hours in the UK. This comes after he met the King for just 45 minutes during his whistle-stop visit.
Police set to crack down on protesters using face coverings to conceal their identity in a bid to curb dangerous disorder.
After months of protests taking over the capital, the government seems to have finally had enough. But will these new laws be enough to make a difference? Find out more with me very soon.
Finding a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber.
The father of murdered transgender teenager Brianna Jai calls for the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to apologise for his comments during Prime Minister's questions yesterday.
Heavy snow set to blanket swathes of the country as the Met Office issues an amber weather warning.
Good morning. We've got amber snow warnings in force today with a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain. So make sure you find out all the details with me a little later on.
And HMRC are investigating more than 2,000 families over not paying enough inheritance tax. We're going to be debating that a little bit later.
And in the sport, Chelsea in FA Cup away win shocker. More VAR debates, and this could be a film. Taylor Swift and the Great Super Bowl Conspiracy.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
You're a huge Taylor Swift fan, aren't you?
I am a Swiftie, as they are known. I'm going to see her in June, the 22nd.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
All this thing now, she influences the economies of cities and things when she visits, apparently. Why is she so big?
Well, I've always been a fan. I'm one of the originals, actually, but she's got very, very popular in the last couple of years. But yeah, I am.
There you go.
I am.
Did
I've
she
been
used
to
to do
every tour
Did she do country music or something?
Yeah, so basically she's done all the different genres of music, which is why her latest tour is called the Eras Tour, because she's had so many eras. So she's had a country, a pop, a rock, a folk, everything. And she's very popular, and she's dating Travis Kelce at the moment, who is an NFL star in the US, and she apparently has made their shares and their stock prices go up, way up.
Right.
So she's just a powerhouse.
Oh, there you go. There's this picture on the front of the Sun. I'm very glad I asked. Top Son, it says, and it's Prince William and Tom Cruise. I have to say, and I say this, and this isn't in any way a slight, right? So don't get your knickers in a twist. But Tom Cruise, for once, looks his age in that picture.
That's very true, actually.
Because he always looks, when you see him in the films and the publicity shots, all the rest of it, he looks terrifyingly young, considering he's, what is he, about 59 or something like that? And he looks his age there.
I mean, you say that, but he still looks very good for his age.
I mean, he looks great.
61, I mean...
Oh, 61.
What 61-year-old do you know who looks like that?
No, I mean, he looks great, but he does look... it worries me slightly that you get all these huge celebs, so that when you see them in movies and things, you think, blooming heck, is that what we've got to try and live up to now?
They've got an awful lot of help, though, haven't they?
They do have a lot of help.
Plastic surgeon on speed dial and nutritionist and a...
Yeah.
Personal trainer, so don't compare yourself.
No, but he looks great, but he looks just more normal. I like it when people look a bit more normal. Is that just me? I don't know. That's not...
No, I think it's
like, look at the
actually.
King. There's a lovely shot of the King.
Now, he looks well for his age.
He's a man who is... the older he gets, the better he looks.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He's grown into his looks.
He has.
Fantastic.
No, it's very true. And I'll tell you who I did think was looking well last night was Prince William, because he's got an awful lot on his plate, obviously, with his wife and his father, and he's really got, a lot to do now, really got to step up. But he had such good humour last night, cracking a joke about Tom Cruise and taking it all in his stride, it seemed.
Very good.
Very, very good. We're in safe hands, I think.
Yeah.
Prince William.
Yes, I think that's right.
Thank you.
I think that's right. There you go.
Let us know what you think about any of that. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Saying that, I'm 50 in 3 weeks.
And don't you look great?
Or well, I'm just thinking maybe I need to book in
2
plastic
weeks.
surgery. Is it 2 weeks? I don't know, 1st of March anyway. Maybe I need to...
Put it in your diaries, the big 50.
I won't be here. Maybe I need to book in the plastic surgeon and the Botox and the fillers and the hair dyes and all that. Should I do that?
Nothing to worry about. No. You're
I could
natural.
come back. I'm going to be off for a week or two, but I could come back looking
Whole new man.
Looking like I'm 26.
I think you look great for your... Not that 50 is any age at all, but you do look great.
But I wouldn't do it. I'm all for being real.
He's real. He's natural.
And if you don't like it, hard cheese.
Hard
basically.
cheese. Oh, and just before we move on, sorry, this QR code over here, this way, is... You can scan that now, and you can put a question to the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, because it's the People's Forum on Monday evening, and Stephen Dixon is hosting.
Yeah, it should be great. It's up in the northeast, and there's a little promo. So there's the QR code. You can scan that, or you just go to gbnews.com/PM, and that's how you register your interest if you want to be part of that studio audience. It's live. 8 p.m. on Monday, and he will be taking, not my questions, but your questions live from the studio audience. So, and I'm just the oil in the machine to make sure it all slips along quite nicely. But it's going to be fascinating. So you can, no holds barred in that one. Ask the PM what you want.
Well, it's going to be a brilliant event. So do scan that QR code, or you can go to that website to put your questions to the Prime Minister.
Now, our main news, as we just looking at pictures of William, weren't we? The Prince of Wales has spoken about his father's cancer diagnosis for the first time. It was at a gala dinner for Air Ambulance.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all. It's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus. So I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all.
Very good. This is what I mean by being in good humour.
No, it's nice, though. I think that's quite nice.
Very British, I think. Well, this comes as Prince Harry jets home to LA after being in the UK for just 24 hours. The Duke met King Charles for 45 minutes during his whistle-stop stay, but he failed to see his brother.
Let's talk to royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, who joins us now. Look, there's some eyebrows being raised, Richard, about Harry only seeing his father for 45 minutes. I suppose that might have been all the King could handle, actually, as he's undergoing treatment at the moment.
Yes, I think that is probably a fair assessment. I mean, one of the problems with what's happened, it's been a terrible shock. He shared his diagnosis with Harry, and Harry has, of course, an instant transatlantic dash, and you had this very, very brief meeting, and then, of course, the King and Queen went by helicopter to Sandringham. Now, what was said, I mean, we weren't there. We know, however, that the King has begun treatment, and that can be, I'm sure, extremely tiring. So that perhaps was a reason. I mean, this was a gesture. It's a gesture that hopefully there will be a certain amount built on that, and it will take time. The brothers were never expected to see each other, or couldn't have been, in my opinion, never, because, I mean, we know they haven't spoken for months, and we also know there's a deep rift in the royal family, and we know also that cancer is life-threatening. Again, this means that in the weeks and months to come, most hopefully, feelers will be put out. Harry perhaps will come again. He was very sensible to come solo, I thought, and what will emerge will be a healing of the rift, but it will take time because there's got to be mutual trust.
Do you think this could be the start of a reconciliation then? I mean, you just said it was good that he came. It was good that he came alone. He didn't see his brother this time, perhaps understandable with everything that Prince William has on his own plate at the moment. But do you think this could be a start of new relations within the royal family?
Well, it could be the start of it. I mean, he has shown, of course, concern, as I'm sure any son would, given the circumstances, and we're not aware, of course, of the exact details, but the facts obviously are that this is going to be a very testing time for the royal family. And we saw last night, and I agree with your comments about Prince William's speech. I mean, the opportunity to thank the nation for the way they've sent messages of support for the King and also for Catherine. And also, I thought, a marvellous joke. In fact, the moment I heard the joke, I put up a tweet saying that this is wonderful, because this is a sort of humour that helps get you through a very, very difficult time. And it's also worth remembering that William was with the East Anglian Air Ambulance for 2 years before he took up royal duties full time. And the emphasis there was to try and give his family as normal a life as possible. And next week, apparently, with a half term, he'll be spending time with his children and also, of course, with Catherine, who's recuperating, and she won't be able to, so we understand, undertake royal duties until after Easter at the earliest.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him. As you say, Richard, I think he did incredibly well last night, actually, in putting a very human face on it all, which is always nice to see. Good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Now, the government is bringing in new restrictions that will allow police to arrest people wearing face coverings, as well as those who block roads during protests.
Number 10 hopes these measures will crack down on what they're calling dangerous disorder.
And it follows months of pro-Palestine demonstrations and road disruptions by Extinction Rebellion. Well, earlier we spoke to Police, Crime and Fire Minister Chris Philp on GB News Breakfast.
Don't support war memorials being disrespected, and we don't support people covering their face to get away with committing criminal activity, and that's why we're announcing these changes today, and we're going to make the changes via amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill coming back before Parliament in just a few weeks' time.
Well, GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us now live from Westminster. Very good morning to you, Olivia. So tell us a bit more about these new measures, and I wanted to ask you, do you think the police are equipped to maintain this order?
Well, morning, Ellie, and I think that's a really interesting question, which I'll get onto. But first, these new measures, they're a pretty sweeping range of measures designed to crack down on antisocial behaviour, but specifically, really, these pro-Palestine protests, which take over the capital pretty much every weekend since October. Now, last year, of course, we had the Public Order Act, which brought in a whole lot of measures designed to crack down on protests. In that act, slow walking was banned, for example. These new measures go a step further. They make it illegal for people to climb onto war memorials. That's something that's been discussed a lot over the last year, and public support really tends to be behind that. It also bans people from going to protests and setting off fireworks and firecrackers. That's been a particular trait of these pro-Palestine protests. As you say, though, the question is, will the police really be able to enforce these new laws? It is very, very hard for the police to police these pro-Palestine protests as it is. There is a huge amount of public funding going into the policing of these protests. And it's all very well the government saying that under these new measures, police officers would be able to arrest those who refuse to wear a mask, for instance. But when we see the images of those protests, there are sometimes hundreds of thousands of people crowding in to the capital, picking out those who have chosen to wear a mask, when quite often that's a pretty regular occurrence, will be very, very difficult indeed for the police. Another problem for the government is what will happen when these amendments to the Criminal Justice Act go to the House of Lords. Last year, when the Public Order Act was going through the House of Lords, lots of the government's measures to crack down on protests were actually voted down by the House of Lords and had to be rewritten by the House of Commons, and it took a long time to strike some sort of compromise. I think now we can expect something pretty similar, because there are those even on the Conservative benches of the House of Lords who don't like the idea of cracking down on legal protests. They worry that it's too close to reining in free speech.
OK, can we ask about PMQs yesterday? I mean, it's in a lot of the papers today, some demanding the Prime Minister says sorry for comments he made, all in relation to Brianna Ghey. What do you think of it all?
Well, it's a tricky position that the Prime Minister finds himself in. Essentially, what happened, for those who weren't watching, is that the Prime Minister made a joke, really, about Keir Starmer not knowing what a woman is. And Brianna Ghey's mother, the transgender teenager who was murdered, her mother was sitting in the public gallery at the time. Keir Starmer immediately said that it was out of order from Rishi Sunak, and there have since been demands for him to apologise. Now, interestingly, what I'm hearing is that actually, at the time, Rishi Sunak just hadn't heard or wasn't really aware that Brianna Ghey's mother was in the gallery at the time, and his own instinct, I've heard, was to apologise. But very soon after the incident, Kemi Badenoch tweeted essentially backing up the Prime Minister, doubling down on what he had said, saying that his comments were perfectly acceptable and that he shouldn't have to apologise, which now means that Rishi Sunak has little option but to do the same and double down on those comments. So I don't think we'll expect an apology from the Prime Minister later today, even if that's what he might want to do himself.
OK, Olivia Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, research from the University of Manchester has found that, on average, 50 veterans take their own life in the UK each and every year.
Well, in order to reduce that number, Greater Manchester Police have implemented a new system named the Forcer Protocol in order to locate and support veterans who go missing.
Well, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper spoke to the founder of this initiative.
If Alan truly knew the pain that he caused his family and his children, there's no way he would have done what he done to us.
In 2020, Alan Forcer, a father, a husband and a veteran, went missing. He had suffered with PTSD as a result of his time in the army, and sadly, like so many others, he'd decided to take his own life. Now, Alan's former wife, Claire, is ensuring better measures are in place for veterans that go missing to make sure they get the help they need before it's too late.
Between 1996 and 2018, there was 1,086 veteran suicides, which is roughly one a week somewhere in the UK. So it makes sense to find them as soon as possible and implement that care.
What's the circumstances leading to them going missing?
If a veteran does go missing, it's vital they're found and given help as soon as possible.
Is a missing person a veteran?
That's where the new Forcer protocol, founded by Claire in Alan's memory, is hoping to have an impact.
Veterans will upload their information onto Safe and Found online. When that call then comes into the police, we now ask every person that's reported missing to us at Greater Manchester Police now whether they've served in the forces or whether they're currently serving. That allows us to capture who is a missing veteran.
Right now, around 3% of the population of Greater Manchester is made up of veterans. But with around 1.85 million veterans nationwide, there's clearly much more work to be done.
Manchester probably isn't the main area for veterans. You know, we don't have any garrisons, we don't have any real barracks within Manchester. So that's why it's so important for this protocol to be rolled out nationally. We've already had 42, but what are other places in the country, what volume are they getting?
When Alan was first reported missing, he was only deemed a medium risk, despite Claire highlighting his multiple health concerns to their local police force. 4 years later, and Claire is determined that the Forcer protocol will give other veterans that go missing the treatment and support they deserve.
It gives them the chance, doesn't it? Prevention is ultimately the cure. Preventative measures are always kind of, you know, I'm a big believer in the saying, you know, we need to go up or downstream and find out why people are falling in. There's been several, if not tens of missed opportunities to implement care for our veterans that have been lost to suicide.
In just 3 months since its launch, the Forcer protocol has located dozens of missing veterans in Greater Manchester alone. But it's hoped that this is just the beginning, both here and across the UK. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
How have we got into this situation where so many veterans are struggling in this way? It's shocking, actually. There are charities out there who can help if you're facing that yourself or a family member or a friend. Head Up, who we have on the show quite regularly, can help you out, or Combat Stress can help you out, or, of course, the Samaritans. Now, if you want to call the Samaritans, that number is 116 123 24/7. Totally free. Or you can drop them an email, joe@samaritans.org.
Now, Annie Shuttleworth has your latest weather.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a drier interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
Now, there's still plenty of time for you to grab your chance to win £18,000 cash in our Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details you need to enter.
This is your chance to win £18,000 cash in our very latest Great British Giveaway. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having an extra £1,500 in your bank account each month for a whole year. What would you use that for?
Well, congratulations, you've won £10,000.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd of February. Good luck.
Now, coming up, we're going to be debating what has become, actually, an age-old question. Should we ban inheritance tax? We'll talk about that in just a moment.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
Questions to be answered, and there seem to be a significant amount, does once again point its way to a public inquiry into exactly what happened in this case. Starmer's called for that. Would you call for that too?
I certainly think that first of all, there's one thing that's happening now. The NHS have to order an independent inquiry. That's been done. So they've got to look at all the whys and wherefores of what happened with this man. If it appears that we're not getting sufficient depth and breadth to this, then I think having an inquiry with all the powers that brings would be extremely advantageous. What I don't want is some long-winded inquiry that will take years, by which time other people will have been put at risk and maybe other lives have lost. We know what the problems are here, Camilla. Law's been passed on this. This is all about making sure on the ground we implement the highest degree of monitoring in order to ensure the safety of the public.
Has care in the community failed? I mean, it seems oxymoronic to say that it's care in the community in this case. We know that the number of psychiatric care beds has been slashed from 52,000 back in 2001 to 24,000 now. I've anecdotally, because I wrote my column about this in The Telegraph yesterday, received quite a lot of correspondence from people saying the situation with care in the community is dire. People aren't being adequately monitored. Was it a mistake to close down all of those mental institutions?
I don't think we should go back to those days when we had those appalling institutions where we just lock people away and forget about them, and not just mental health people, but autistic people and disabled people. Horrific way to treat individuals, and you know I campaign on that a lot.
I know.
However, I think if we move into a more community-based approach, which can be really good for many, many people who are on the spectrum and on that scale of mental health, we have to remember there will be a small but significant number who will continue to pose a danger. And that's why monitoring is so important.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 8:25. Now, a reminder that on Monday, the Prime Minister is going to be taking part in a special People's Forum live on GB News, hosted by our very own Stephen Dixon, the man of the people. And over the course of the hour, Rishi Sunak is going to take questions directly from you, the great British public. We know you want to be involved, and this is how you can do it. You can scan the QR code on your screens now, or you can go to the website, gbnews.com/PM. /PM, and you can register your interest and pop your question in there as well.
So it's very off-putting because they've written it in as /, which nobody says now.
No one says /.
Nobody puts a backslash in these days.
It's a very good point.
It's just slash.
But you're very much looking forward to it.
Or dash or flash.
And it's going to be great, isn't it?
It's going to be fantastic because it's all about the PM taking questions directly from the public.
Yep, and I bet there's some good questions in there.
And about priorities. What are people's priorities? Nobody else is doing this. It's all pre-recorded interviews with the PM. So this is real and live. There's no hiding away from it. You can't edit this one.
And many people who put him there in the first place that voted Tory
well, exactly.
in 2019, perhaps not happy now, or perhaps they are. We'll find out on Monday, but don't miss it. And there's the QR code there.
Thank you. It's next to me. There you go. Now, HMRC are investigating more than 2,000 families who apparently haven't paid enough inheritance tax.
Yes, between April and November 2023, the taxman has taken around £172 million in unpaid death levies.
Well, it begs the question whether it's time for the government to abolish it altogether or perhaps to hammer down even harder.
OK, well, to debate this morning, we're joined by Head of Campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck, and political consultant Emma Burnell. Very good to see you this morning. Emma, let's start with you. Is it time that we ban inheritance tax?
No, it's an absolute nonsense. What other crime that people commit do we respond to by going, oh, well, maybe we'll just make it not a crime then, it's fine, you're all right. If people aren't paying their taxes, they're committing a crime. And by committing a crime, we don't respond to that by softly measures. And nowhere else on this channel have I seen that response to any other crime.
Elliot, go on, respond to that. I mean, that's blown me away slightly. What do you think, Elliot?
Yeah, I don't quite follow that line of argument. By that line of argument, you could never cut any tax. I think the broader picture is one that inheritance tax is two things, really. It's a tax on death and it's a tax on misfortune. If you give all your wealth away to your children, let's say, and then you die 8 years later, none of it will be subject to tax. But if you do it all 7 years before you die, i.e., based on pure misfortune, then you will have to pay, or rather the people that inherit your wealth will have to pay often a significant amount of tax. And that means often rearranging family estates, houses, whatever it is, in quite rapid movement, and having to then sell off those potentially major family properties in order to pay often very, very large bills to the taxman. And the thing is it hits those actually who are just over the threshold. Those who are the super, super rich are able to afford the tax advisors to rearrange their wealth in ways that can take advantage of the many exemptions. And it actually hits those that are just over the threshold, i.e. the squeezed middle.
I mean, it's the bottom line, Emma, on this, once again, isn't it? It's a death tax. Why should people pay tax on their income, which has been taxed multiple times already? It does seem, and a lot of people in this country, even if they wouldn't have to pay it themselves, think it is inherently unfair.
People think all taxes are unfair, but they also want decent public services. If we're going to have decent public services, some tax has to be paid from some places in order to pay for them. Would you rather pay those taxes while you're alive, or would you rather pay them after you've finished using your own money? Honestly, most people would probably rather pay it when it's not actually hitting themselves. In terms of the family estates, you get the first 300 and I think it's 25,000 pounds tax-free. If it's going directly, if your will is leaving things directly to your family, that raises to £500,000. We're talking about the estates of the top 4% in the country. We're not talking about you or me. And equally, the one thing Elliot is right about is that there are rich people who are abusing loopholes to get away with this. That's what should be banned, not the tax itself.
Elliot?
Well, I'd certainly agree that abandoning the loopholes, closing those loopholes and then raising the overall threshold would be preferable to the situation we have at the moment. But actually, the much better solution is simply to scrap inheritance tax. It doesn't actually raise that much money, £7 billion out of a total roughly £1 trillion of government receipts. It makes up about 1,000 pages of about an 11,000-page tax code. It's incredibly complicated. It doesn't raise much, and it hits those that are often grieving. We talk about 4% of estates. That's actually rapidly growing. Of course, 4% of estates actually affects far more people than 4%. That's the spouse of the person that died, the children, the nephews, the nieces, the friends that may all be part of that overall inheritance. So it affects far more than just the 4% of people that die. And of course, that is significantly growing.
You'd change your mind, Emma, if you had to pay it, wouldn't you?
No, I probably will have to pay it because my parents own a reasonable property in London. I will absolutely pay my taxes happily. As J.K. Rowling has said, taxes are the price we pay for living in a decent society. I'm aware of the desperate state of our public services, and I think they should be well funded. And frankly, this is the most fair way of funding it. Taxing people...
Can I just jump in? Because you raised an interesting point in that you said a second ago it only affects 4% of people, so it doesn't affect any of us. And then you've gone to say, well, actually, I probably will have to pay it. Which just goes to show it is affecting more and more ordinary people. This is the problem.
I'm very lucky, so it won't affect... I don't have any children or dependents. I will never have the kind of money that would get taxed, so it won't affect me in that I won't be the dead person that Elliot is very emotively talking about. It will probably affect my parents, who will then display they've got a house in Chingford. It's a lovely house. It's probably will just go up. We're going to be those people just over the threshold, and all of us are okay with that. And then when that money's dispersed between the three of us, we won't then have enough to be taxed ourselves.
I think we should be clear here that it's not the dead person that pays the tax, it's the person that inherits the wealth. So let's say you inherit a house from your father, maybe it's worth £600,000, not a huge property in London nowadays. Actually, that's a relatively normal property in London. If that's £600,000, you're suddenly having to pay about £40,000 to the taxman for that. That means that unless you're able to pay that £40,000 effectively in cash, you're going to have to sell that house, and you're going to have to sell that house relatively quickly to ensure that you're not one of the people that HMRC comes after.
I'm afraid we are out of time. Emma Burnell, thank you very much. Elliot Keck and Emma Burnell, thank you very much indeed. Do let us know what you think about that. Should we ban inheritance tax? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, got to stop it there, though, because we've got all the sports still to come your way in just a moment, Paul.
Conspiracy theories in the Super Bowl. Conspiracy theories which involves Taylor Swift. I'll have that for you.
Look forward to it.
Don't want to miss that.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Francis, Just Stop Oil have in the past broken the law. I remember distinctly the Dartford crossing. That ended up with 2 jailed, I believe, if I remember correctly. Is it ever justified in your view?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I mean, I would have to say yes. I mean, we're trying to preserve my life, your lives, the lives of your family, and it's not just the planet that we're trying to protect, it's the lives of millions of people. And, you know, we know from history that we have to break the law in order to put pressure on the government and to be listened to.
No one would doubt your sincerity in your views. You genuinely believe in what you fight for. But there are others who think differently. For example, there are Islamist extremists who believe that people will go to hell unless they convert to Islam. They will sincerely, perhaps, break the law in order to force people to convert. In their view, they might be saving people's lives for eternity. There might be abortion activists who say that babies are being murdered and to save their lives we need to break the law to stop people having abortions. Why do you get to say that your moral conviction is the one that's right and other people's individual moral conviction are those that are wrong?
So what's really integral to the Just Stop Oil campaign is the fact that it is a non-violent campaign. That's what separates us from the examples that you've just given. We're absolutely dedicated non-violence, both as a tactic and as a principle. So though we might be breaking the law...
If individuals take it upon themselves to break the law for whatever their course is, surely the way that we decide what society wants in general is democratic and within the law.
Well, of course, we know also that protest is absolutely integral to maintaining and upholding a democracy, and in particular, non-violent protest. I mean, I really can't express to you how severe this situation is, and I'm sure you know this.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The time is 8:36. It's time for the sport, and Paul Coit is here with us. Morning.
It's Super Bowl Sunday.
Hey!
This Sunday, it's Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers. But there are conspiracy theories around this. Are you aware of what's going on around the Super Bowl and Taylor Swift?
No. Is she rigging it?
Well, apparently the answer is yes. There's conspiracies around Taylor Swift and her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Very beardy, isn't he?
Yes.
Kelce.
All-American man.
You think they're a lovely couple together? Do you think they work together, those two?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, the NFL commissioner, by the name of Roger Goodell, has actually said a few, well, you think you'd just not say anything, but it says this conspiracy theory is nonsense. Basically, the conspiracy theory is this, is that their relationship is part of a plot to rig the Super Bowl and help get Joe Biden re-elected. So the fact that they support Biden, it's rigged that Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl final, and then she's going to be involved in that. Why they're not famous enough as it is to be able to say whatever they want politically, I don't know. So how it's a conspiracy, I don't know. But that's what some people have been saying.
Yeah, that's taking it a step too far.
You know, it's probably as fair as the strawberry cheesecake that we talked about with the drugs involved when it came to Valieva. Yeah. It doesn't really hold up, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Really?
No.
Really.
Mind you, can we talk jewellery?
Yes, we can. Jewellery, very important part of the Super Bowl, because winners of the Super Bowl, they win rings, Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, they're always disgusting.
They are very, they're rather taken. Look at this one. This is the first one. This is from the last Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs. I remember I've actually spoken to players that played in the Super Bowl and got these and said, well, how on earth are they designed? And they said, well, you know, a lot of the team, we sit together and we decide what's going to be on the ring. It usually involves lots and lots of diamonds. And by the way, if you're looking at a big screen TV, that's the actual size of the ring. These are big rings.
Like
how about this one? The from Super Bowl 55. We have another. You know it's going to be pretty similar to the last one, but we have the Tampa Bay. There we are. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Lord. Is it a hat? Is it a ring?
It looks like a pirate's flag.
Well, that's the thing is. Would you wear that?
No.
Would you not wear that?
You like your bling. But that's
I
too
do
far.
like my bling, but that's just brash.
One more.
Is that Tom Brady's then?
Yes.
So they get each individually designed as well?
Oh, no, they all have the same ring. They all have the same ring, but they design it. How about this is the first one, the first Super Bowl from 1967. I don't know whether it'll be less tacky or more... So, see, there we are.
That's more like it.
No, it's just a diamond in the middle.
Yeah, they've got a bit... that's a bit like your wedding ring.
Are they worth a fortune?
Oh, yeah. I mean, hundreds of thousands they go for. But we've got one more ring for you, and this is Luis Suarez. Now, Luis Suarez, the famous striker, played for Liverpool and Barcelona and Uruguay 138 times. He's at Inter Miami. Now, look at that. You can't quite see the ring. He's looking very moody. There we are. El Pistolero, which is his nickname. And it says, the ring defining what it means to be the ultimate champion. Suarez's signature goal celebration, El Pistolero, is known globally and sits in the centre of the ring.
It's disgusting.
Honouring his nationality, the Uruguayan flag is represented in rows of aquamarine and diamond baguettes.
Is that available for sale?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody would... See the little gold thing at the side there? That's the golden boot, which is put inside the ring. And by the way, see, the thing is, it's everything about Luis Suarez apart from this, which I think is missing from the ring, and this is the only thing that they need. And we have a picture of that, and that's the only thing that should be... There we are. That's the only thing that should be on the ring that isn't. But anyway, it'll cost you a few $100,000 if you want one.
Disgusting.
Very, very good. All that money, you'd design a nice ring, wouldn't you?
You would do something classy. Classy.
Yeah.
Paul, classy and you do not go together, so...
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
The pots and the kettle. Thank you very much, Stephen.
I know. We've got the papers heading away in just a moment.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Lots of people have different ideas, but principally a conservative approach to getting growth is to reduce taxes so that people, ordinary people and businesses can spend more of their own money to invest and grow the economy.
So the theory is that you cut taxes and that then pumps more money into the economy.
Exactly right. And then people, you know, it's not government that are creating wealth. It's individuals, businessmen, companies that create wealth. It's the private sector that creates wealth, that the public sector then taxes and spends.
I get the theory, but one of the criticisms of you, and I think one of the criticisms actually of all political parties, is they appear to be incapable of cutting government spending.
That's the key. I mean, and I think when I look back, is that we should have had a credible plan to reduce the increase in spending. Now, that's often a difficult concept to explain.
But it's in line with inflation, etc.
That's all right. So when you're slowing the increase, it means, you know, one year you spend £100 and the next year you spend maybe £101 as opposed to going up to £110. So the actual level isn't going down, but you're slowing the increase. And that's very much what I tried to do. And actually, looking back, the one thing I wish I'd done, was to present a credible spending plan at the same time as the tax cuts that we announced.
You had a go, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and that analysis will go on for some years to come. We have Jeremy Hunt there as Chancellor now, hinting quite strongly now there won't be any tax cuts, but the truth of it is, under 14 years of Conservatives, for a variety of reasons, the tax burden has risen to the highest since the Attlee government way back in
80 years,
1951, whatever it is.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
8:43. Time for the papers this morning with the editor of Spike, Tom Slater, and the author and journalist Susan Holder. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
What's the Telegraph saying, Tom, about security concerns?
Yeah, so security fears as top cabinet official quits to work in the UAE. That's the headline here. It's centering on a gentleman called Alex Aiken, who has been in Number 10 comms for many years. He sat in on security meetings, Cobra meetings and so on. He's now got a job in Abu Dhabi, working for the UAE government in communications. And it's this recurring story, isn't it, about...
he knows too much.
Concerns that he knows too much. Also, it kind of feeds in with this running story that obviously involves the Telegraph, which is the fact that you've got the UAE currently trying to buy the Telegraph, to buy the Spectator, and concern about a sort of an outsized influence or a sort of revolving door, I guess, between Abu Dhabi and some of our institutions here in the UK. It's particularly concerns have been raised here because of the fact that it's not even clear that this gentleman will have the kind of usual sort of stepping back time that you would expect if someone went, for instance, from working in the civil service to going and working in a particular industry. So it's not to cast aspersions on this particular gentleman, but I think people put these things together and say, are we being too lackadaisical about people who've worked in the heart of government or foreign governments which aren't democratic, which have their own interests, buying up some of our key institutions like the Daily Telegraph?
So if you leave this job, we're going to shoot you. You know, I don't know. It's just people want all the jobs.
Maybe you need a grace period or something where you're working.
That's the question: is that grace period in place, and are there sufficient?
Yeah, but if you have like a non-compete.
But if it's a grace period, if it's a grace period, that's going to mean that all the secrets you know are no longer worthy of anything. It's going to be about 15.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, you can't unknow what you know, can you? That's true.
I don't know, it's all a bit odd. More importantly, Susan,
yes,
to my mind, and this is not me being remotely smutty, don't think that, but Viagra...
Yes, good news.
Can reduce Alzheimer's.
Double good news if you... Well, yeah, because if you...
Double good news.
Well, in as much as if you need Viagra and it works, that's good news, isn't it? I suppose, if that's if you're using it for the reason that you think it should be for. But the extra benefit that they think they might have found is that it lowers the risk of Alzheimer's. So basically, they need to do a proper clinical trial on this. So far, it's a study done on several hundred men. And it has to be remembered, of course, that Viagra was found... It wasn't designed for...
heart medication.
Yeah, it was for angina and blood pressure. And when Welsh miners took it in a trial in Merthyr Tydfil, they remarked on its unexpected nighttime side effects. And... Everyone knows what I'm talking about. It then became the multi-billion-dollar erectile dysfunction pill. But another side effect they've now found inadvertently is that because it opens up the blood vessels and gets blood to run to various parts of the body, it can help. That's what needs to be helped with Alzheimer's.
See, I think this is brilliant.
It's the way that pharmaceuticals always work, and we're and it is something that we could kind of laugh about in a way. But what a brilliant way! What we did remind me, though, I watched an episode of Victoria Wood's Dinner Ladies this week where the character Dolly, played by Thelma Barlow, inadvertently drank a cup of tea with some Viagra in it, and she panicked immediately and going, "Well, what will it do to women when it gets down there? Where will it go?" And I was interested in that because it does say actually it will be expected to work the same on women for lower risk of Alzheimer's as well. So yeah, good news.
No, brilliant.
Tom, should we talk biscuits?
Yes.
Oh, you've been desperate for this all morning.
Desperate to talk about this.
Lobbying for this story to go into the market, and it's finally made its way. But this is the story that Nestlé is discontinuing two of its biscuit line. So one of which is the biscuit version of the Yorkie is for the chop. When this was first announced, there was a lot of concern that the Yorkie full stop would be going, but that's not the case. I can clarify that on
I've never even seen a biscuit version of the Yorkie.
And apparently it's not... Oh, there we go. Apparently it's maybe not as popular as the bar itself, which is why it's for the chop. The breakaway is also going, which is obviously a bit more of a firm...
I like a breakaway. Tom's never had a breakaway.
Never had a breakaway.
Haven't you? A nice breakaway.
I'm going to go and make the most of it this afternoon. Just take the...
He's going to go and buy a big pack while he still can. They're quite crumbly shortbready, aren't they?
Yeah,
breakaways?
Kind of oaty.
Yeah, but there's a lot of biscuits at risk. I went into my bag to see what I had because
You always have a biscuit.
Well, I've got a very busy day ahead, and you never know where you're going to be. So I found that I had a Tunnocks caramel wafer. Well, Tunnocks, they put their tea cakes on an at-risk register not long ago because they're made by the same people. You know, the kind of little biscuits with the dome of...
Like the marshmallow,
The marshmallow ones. So, so I've started to I'm supporting them because if you like your biscuit, then buy them.
But that's
otherwise
what I
you might
thought with
lose
it,
them.
because aren't blue ribbons going?
They're staying, but they're introducing a new line, apparently, the blue ribbon hazelnut. I didn't realise that's been around since 1936.
Blue ribbon?
It's awful.
It was never that nice, a blue ribbon.
No.
They're a bit inconsequential.
Yes.
That's what I would say about a blue ribbon. I think a breakaway is a loss, because a breakaway is a proper biscuit with nice chocolate on it. Yorkie, I'm not sure about the chocolate. I'm not your biscuit correspondent, although it would appear I am.
We were showing a clip, if you listened on the radio before, of the old Yorkie advert. Not for not for girls.
You couldn't do that
for girls.
now.
You couldn't do it now. You couldn't, could you?
I'm almost certain they probably had to retire it because of some over-the-top politically correct response to it. But that was the genius of it, because you had a pretty unremarkable chocolate bar, which is a bit chunkier. And they just said, we'll just, shame boys into eating it, because otherwise it's unmatched.
Yeah. And also make girls want to buy it and have it because they were told they can't. If you tell a girl they can't do something, that's what we want to do.
That was me after school, going to get a Yorkie bar.
With the
exactly
moustache.
that reason.
That's it.
Yeah, I just thought if you tell me I can't do something, I'll go
absolutely
buy a biscuit.
Oh, yeah,
and it worked.
It's marketing genius. Now they can't do it.
What's your biscuit of choice? You don't eat biscuits. You're part of the problem.
I know. If they're put in front of me, I'll have them. Yeah. I just like a chocolate digestive,
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
I like a chocolate digestive.
We know what you like over there, the Tunnocks.
I like
the whole Tunnocks range.
The whole Tunnocks range. But biscuit-wise, for dunking custard cream.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
I
one.
like a custard cream or a bourbon.
And did you know
bourbon?
Well, that's all a Yorkie is,
A bourbon in chocolate.
I think there's films on TikTok of children melting Yorkies in a microwave, and if you do that, all you end up with is a bourbon biscuit covered in Yorkie chocolate.
What's it called?
Bourbon.
A bourbon.
A Bourbon.
A Bourbon.
A Bourbon biscuit.
That's how it's pronounced in the Bourbon country where they come from.
What are yours? Mickey at me? A Bourbon?
I say Bourbon.
It's got a U in it.
Yeah, but you don't have... A lot of words have a lot of letters in. You don't pronounce them all, Stephen. You get yourself into a whole heap of trouble.
Bourbons.
A Bourbon.
Oh, come on. If you're anywhere in Cumbria, email in. Bourbon biscuits. Like a Bourbon.
Oh, dear. Well, you've got to buy your biscuits if you like them because they're at threat.
Support your favourite biscuit.
Support your favourite biscuit.
Yeah.
Use it or lose it with your biscuit.
Exactly.
Can we... who did biscuits? Oh, that was Tom. So let's do Susan, talking British girls are not confident in learning maths.
Yes, which is a worry, but I have to confess I am one of those girls.
But it's also... Why is this a gender thing?
I
That's
don't
ridiculous.
know. I don't know, but they do say that Teach First found that 54% of girls, which is only just over half, isn't it? Even with my maths, I can figure that out.
Yeah.
54% is only just over half, do lack confidence in maths compared to boys. But the gap is wider in science. But despite feeling less confident, a higher percentage of girls actually achieve top grades in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering and mathematics.
See, this is what really irritates me. Right, in all of this sort of thing, because it's confidence.
Yes.
You know, they don't feel confident in doing it. When they do it, they come out on top.
Yeah, which is it.
So
Yeah.
just have the confidence to do it.
Just having if you stand in just having confidence, telling someone to have confidence is never quite the way to get them to have confidence, is it? Is that how you give people confidence? You just stand and shout, have confidence.
Just get on with it. You're strong, independent women. That's what I say to my niece. So she's 21 now, but when she was going through school and all the rest of it, and she said, "You're a strong, independent woman, Isabel.
Yes.
If you want to do it, you can do it."
Yeah, well,
Crack on with it.
And my niece actually is a maths teacher.
There you go.
So she obviously is very good at maths. But I have fear of numbers. I'm good with the words, and I don't like the numbers. So I will do anything to avoid. I can't even memorise a phone number.
You'd be rubbish on countdown, wouldn't you?
I would be a bit... Well, I'm good on the conundrum.
Yeah.
But you put all those numbers on the thing. What Rachel Riley does, it's a miracle to me. I have no idea how that happens. But I am quite frightened
She could be
of it.
making that up and I wouldn't know.
No,
I wouldn't know.
it probably is.
No, it's just... It might as well be Japanese.
Oh. But how do you fix that, though? How do you fix a crisis, a confidence crisis in young girls?
It's a difficult one as well, because it seems like a bit of a constant, because you often see this when you might see young recruits coming through a particular organisation. You know, the boys might not know what they're doing, but they will act like they know what they're doing, somewhat more so. But I don't know how you... I mean, these things do just happen culturally, I suppose, sometimes. But as you say, it's just about seeing past what might be your own kind of immediate concerns about this thing. I think you can do this, just... do it. But it's good advice for anyone, regardless of,
just get a load of young women into Wembley Stadium and I will stand there with a microphone going, "You are strong, independent women."
Now do your maths problem.
Get on with it. If you want to do it, you can do it. Do you want to do maths? Do you want to be a plumber? Do you want to be an electrician? Do you want to drive a tank? You can do it the same as anybody else. Get on with it.
Stephen has spoken.
Yeah, I think it'll be very good.
I do believe if you want to do something, do it. Don't be driven by what other people want you to do.
No, you're right.
And if you fail at it, try something else.
Yeah.
I worked in a shoe factory. I wasn't very good at it, and now look at me.
There we are.
Wasn't actually my career
What a loss to shoes that is.
A loss to shoes.
Motivational messaging from Stephen Dixon this morning. Very good, very good. We all need a little bit of that.
Don't be held
Tom,
back.
Susan, thank you very much indeed. Really good to have you with us this morning.
You're a strong, independent woman, Susan.
You are, Susan.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoy your biscuit.
As you ever.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a dry interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi, Rishi Sunak here. Join me for a special GB News People's Forum Live on Monday the 12th of February. I want to hear about the issues that matter to you. For your chance to be part of the audience and to put your questions to me, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com. See you there.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat. Yep. Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. Yeah. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of February. Today,
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all.
Prince William steps up as he addresses the King's cancer diagnosis at a gala in London.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry jets home after 24 hours in the UK. This comes after he met the King for just 45 minutes during his whistle-stop visit.
Police are set to crack down on protesters using face coverings to conceal their identity in a bid to curb dangerous disorder.
After months of pro-Palestine protests taking over the capital, the government seems finally to have had enough. But will these new laws be enough to do anything?
The manhunt continues for the Clapham chemical attacker as police warn that the fugitive Abdullah Zaidi could die from his injuries.
The National Crime Agency warns Zaidi he's at serious risk of sepsis as the manhunt enters its 8th day. Police now treating this attack as attempted murder.
Finding a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber.
The father of the murdered transgender teenager Brianna Jai calls for the Prime Minister to apologise for his comments during PMQs yesterday.
And brace for another big freeze as heavy snow is expected to blanket large parts of the country.
Good morning. We've got amber snow warnings in force today with a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain. So make sure you find out all the details with me a little later on.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Lots of you getting in touch on these new protest laws this morning. Do keep those views coming in. Robert says, I think the new protest laws are an affront to free speech and freedom of expression. If people aren't doing anything wrong, then they should be allowed to be anonymous. And if they aren't damaging a war memorial, then they should be able to climb on them. This is part of protest and it's purely symbolic. Protest shouldn't just be for causes that the government agrees with.
No, but I struggle with that a little bit. I mean, war memorials, we should never be climbing on war memorials. You wouldn't climb on someone's gravestone, would you? If you saw a child doing that in a graveyard, you'd tell them off.
You would, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm with you on that one, Robert. John says, I agree with tighter laws on face coverings at demonstrations, but this also needs to apply to police too. I think the difference is with the police, even if for some reason they are wearing a safety mask or some sort of safety covering, you can see their numbers. Their identification numbers are always visible. So that would be the difference.
And Mel says it's totally unenforceable. He says his wife has a sore throat at the moment. When they go out, she covers the lower half of her face to protect her from the cold and the wind. If she were to be on a protest, would she be breaking this new law, or does everyone actually have an obvious defence?
Well, if she's got a sore throat, I would suggest she doesn't go protesting at the moment. Would hate to say it.
Advice.
Yes, she would be breaking the law, Mel. Yeah. Would be breaking the law.
Yeah, so let us know what you think about that one. gbviews@gbnews.com.
But our main news this morning, the Prince of Wales, who's spoken about his father's cancer diagnosis for the first time and thanked the public for their kind messages of support.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all. It's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus, so I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all.
Well, this comes as Prince Harry jets home to LA after being in the UK for just 24 hours. The Duke met King Charles for 45 minutes during his whistle-stop stay, but failed to see his brother.
Well, let's talk to royal biographer Angela Levin, who joins us now. Angela, morning to you. I have to say, I mean, he's across all the papers this morning, and I thought the clip we showed there was just wonderful. Prince William really stepping up to the plate in a way which seems absolutely appropriate, with talking in a serious but also a slightly jovial way about all of this. He just seemed to get the tone absolutely right.
Yeah, he was incredibly dignified, wasn't he? I mean, he is the sort of heir to the throne that any country would want to see, in my view. He doesn't go hysterical and make a drama of it like his brother. And I think also he didn't want the people there to feel that they had to be very miserable and low, just as he probably feels in reality, that he could make them laugh with something that is, you know, very funny indeed. I mean, he loved being an ambulance worker, a flying ambulance worker, and it was a lovely time with him and Catherine. They were in Wales, just the two of them, and he loved to do it. Eventually, he found that he was getting very depressed by what he saw for people who died and couldn't get back to hospital as soon as possible. But he wasn't going to put any of that onto this meeting, this fundraising meeting. And he just smiled and said that so that they would feel relaxed. He was thinking about others, not about himself, which is exactly what Harry does. And he has stopped having anything to do with Harry because he knows that he will either use it to get more publicity in the United States, he would use it to be able to sell anything that William said to him and make money that way with Netflix or some TV person, and his behaviour, Harry's behaviour, is beyond imagination. Actually, if your father is ill or anyone you care about is ill, you try and make it something they would want. Is it all right? I would love to come and see you. I'm sorry things have been so bad. Can we please talk and spend some time together? Where are you going to be in London and Sandringham? I would love to come. Tell me when it suits you. Instead of which, he just said he was on his way, make a drama, get to the front page, which he did, and actually make the king really agitated because he had the helicopter waiting to take him to Sandringham and he needed peace and quiet, as anyone might when they've had such a very difficult time.
To be fair to Prince Harry, though, Angela, you could say that he did the right thing. He hopped straight on a plane to come and see his father, who was clearly very worried about, came to see him in person. It was a very flying visit, and there is some criticism in the papers today that he didn't stay quite long enough. But do you think there could be a sign here about reconciliation in this family, with him seeing his father face-to-face and rushing, really, to be by his side?
Well, I wrote Harry's biography, as you know. I spent 15 months with him. I know him and his manners very, very well. And this was all about Harry. I can't think of anything else. The fact is that it doesn't matter what he says, that he's got to rush there. It matters what will suit his father. And if his father said, look, I need a week or two to get used to what I've been told, or I need 3 or 4 days to get used to what I've been told, then Harry could go and spend time with him in Sandringham. It would all be nice. But this rush, this drama, I just think has upset his father rather than anything else. What did he expect to hear? Because you can't trust him anymore. He wasn't going to say anything about his health. They said, the royal family said at the coronation, that the only time they would feel comfortable talking to Harry was to discuss the weather. That will show you how much that they can trust him. They just can't. He's made that his own mistake.
OK, Angela. Appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you. It's a tough one. I personally think it's a very tough one. If it was my member of my family, if it was my father, I'd be straight
on a plane, as would I.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if Prince Harry can win in this situation, because in a way he did the right thing, getting on a plane as quickly as he did and being by his father's side. But then it was a very quick meeting, 45 minutes, and he was gone again within 24 hours.
Yeah, staying a couple of days wouldn't have been a bad thing.
Yeah, maybe seeing his brother or visiting Catherine, who's also ill. I don't know. Let us know what you think.
Now, the government's bringing in new restrictions to allow police to arrest people wearing face coverings, as well as those who block roads during protests.
Yes, Number 10 hopes that these measures will crack down on dangerous disorder.
Well, it follows months of pro-Palestine demonstrations and, of course, those now infamous road disruptions by Extinction Rebellion. Earlier, we spoke to the Police Minister, Chris Philp.
War memorials being disrespected, and we don't support people covering their face to get away with committing criminal activity, and that's why we're announcing these changes today, and we're going to make the changes via amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill coming back before Parliament in just a few weeks' time.
Well, GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us live from Westminster now. Very good morning to you, Olivia. So tell us a little bit more about these new measures, and key question really, are they enforceable?
Well, I think that's a really important question. This is a sweeping range of measures that the government is planning to introduce in order to crack down on antisocial behaviour at protests. Essentially, anyone who attends a protest will no longer be allowed to wear a face covering or a mask. And if a police officer tells them to remove that face covering and they refuse to do so, they would be eligible for a £1,000 fine and up to a month's prison sentence. The new laws would also rule out people climbing on war memorials. That's something that we've seen in the last few months at some of these pro-Palestine protests and at some of the protests around Remembrance Sunday. There is a lot of public support for a law that would rule out climbing on war memorials. The question is, will these measures actually work? Last year, the government, by way of the Public Order Act, brought down a whole lot of very similar measures aimed to crack down on antisocial protesting. So that ruled out people gluing themselves to objects, people slow walking in the road, etc. But the problem is that the police find it very, very difficult to actually enforce these laws. And I think this time round, we're going to see something quite similar. Policing these pro-Palestine protests has been a massive challenge for the Met. On some weeks, there have been over 100,000 protesters descending on the centre of London. And in that sort of crowd, picking out people who are wearing face coverings is pretty difficult. Another problem for the House of Commons is that there is a chance that these measures won't get through the Lords. Last time when the government tried to bring in measures like this, the Lords kicked up a bit of a fuss because they were worried that it was cracking down on free speech, something I know one of our viewers wrote in to say as well. So there are some pretty big hurdles for the government to overcome before this becomes law.
So what about this pressure now on the Prime Minister to apologise after PMQs yesterday?
Yeah, the Prime Minister has been painted into a bit of a corner with this one. He made a comment yesterday at Prime Minister's questions about Keir Starmer not knowing what a woman is. It was a bit of a joke, really. And Keir Starmer, with this visible fury, responded that it was not the week to make a comment like that, with Brianna Jay's mother, the transgender teenager who was murdered. Her mother was in the Commons chamber yesterday. Now, from what I've heard, the Prime Minister wasn't aware that Brianna Jay's mother was there, hadn't really heard what Keir Starmer had said or hadn't taken it in, and instinctively he wanted to apologise. But that was made a lot more difficult for him by the fact that very soon after the event, Kemi Badenoch tweeted, essentially doubling down on what the Prime Minister had said and saying that he was perfectly within his rights to do so. Well, that puts the Prime Minister in a bit of a tricky situation, because if he doesn't want to undermine Kemi Badenoch, he now can't apologise. So I think what we're going to see now is no apology at all from Rishi Sunak, even if instinctively that's what he'd want to do.
OK, thanks very much indeed.
Now, the suspected chemical attacker on the run, Abdul Azidi, was in a relationship with his victim. That's according to police.
It comes as new video has been released of the Afghan asylum seeker nearly a week after a corrosive liquid was thrown at a woman in South London.
Well, police have also said that Azidi's injuries could be fatal if not treated.
Well, let's talk to our reporter Ray Addison, who joins us now from New Scotland Yard. What's the latest we're getting from police, Ray?
Well, Met Police saying that they're treating this attack now as attempted murder. They believe that Abdul Zaidi knew the 31-year-old victim, had arranged to meet her that day in advance, and that a possible motive for the attack could have been the breakdown of the relationship. Now, as you were mentioning, the latest CCTV footage and stills have been released from Wednesday night. The last sighting 11 p.m. crossing Vauxhall Bridge and then onto Vauxhall Bridge Road and then in the direction of Grosvenor Road. And the National Crime Agency analysing all of this video that they've received so far and saying that they suspect now that Zaidi has got significant injuries which could potentially be life-threatening due to sepsis. So they're urging him to get to hospital. All the hospitals are on high alert. So far as they know, he hasn't made any attempt to walk into a hospital or any other kind of clinic. Now, the Afghan community very much getting involved in this manhunt in their own way. They're putting out their appeals to the community to provide information if they have it. And we heard yesterday evening from Darius Nassimi from the Afghan and Central Asian Association. This is what he had to say.
Someone like him should not be harboured. He himself needs help as well. I don't know if he has any mental health problems or issues. For the Afghan community, the message is please stop harbouring him if anyone is, and please stop helping him if they are.
Darius urging members of the community, if you don't feel comfortable contacting the police for any reason, you can actually contact his organisation and then he'll pass that information on for you. We also heard yesterday from Grange Road Baptist Church in Newcastle that confirmed that it had this connection with Zaidi that we've been hearing about, and they're stressing that anyone, whether asylum seeker or otherwise, who explores the Christian faith, they're going to take due care to make sure that those wanting to become a Christian understand the deep commitment that they're making and turn away from wrongdoing, they say.
OK, right, thank you.
Now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and you could win £18,000 in totally tax-free cash to spend however you like. Fancy the chance to make it yours? Here's how.
We want to turn 2024 into 2020 more with your chance to win £18,000 in cash to spend however you like. You really could be the next big winner of our Great British Giveaway. Phil from West Yorkshire won our last one. Listen to his reaction when we gave him the news.
I never won a penny in my life.
Well, congratulations, you've won £10,000.
Oh my God, wow.
For your chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of February. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck indeed. Now, still to come, we're going to be hearing the shocking stories of families in Rudloe in Wiltshire who've been living in substandard conditions. We'll tell you more in just a moment.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Ken, do you find the Union flag, the Union Jack, divisive?
In some situation, but as Simon quite clearly stated, and I agree with everything that he says in regards that there's situation when people use it for ulterior motive to cause fear, alarm and distress. We saw that with the far right when they came up to saying protecting the Churchill statues and things of that nature. But largely on the large whole, even I wave the St George's flag on a sporting occasion, and I don't see anything wrong in raising the Union Jack or the St George's flag, so long as the intention is correct. And as he says, Mr. Brockhurst, he served for the country, and he should have every right to be proud of what he's done and the way that he wants to display it.
All right, Simon, what do you make of this kind of, I would argue it as like student social media-based politics, where you get these pillocks from the Green Party or whatever saying, oh, it's divisive and I can't believe it. It will be legal in this country to do... Do those people need to get out more? I was on the streets of Stratford earlier on, an incredibly diverse place, speaking to a massive range of people right across different age demographics. I couldn't find a single sausage who said to me that they thought that this guy from the Green Party was right.
He obviously has absolutely no attention from anybody, and this is his way of finding attention. Both Ken and myself, we both agree that nobody should use any symbol of national identity to offend others deliberately, because that's just inflaming a situation. There's so much sensitivity around so many things today, and people do get offended by so much so quickly without any rhyme or reason.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Now, next Monday, the Prime Minister's taking part in a special People's Forum live here on GB News. So over the course of an hour, he's going to be taking questions directly from you, if you're in the studio audience, that is. And if you want to be, well, you can scan the QR code that's on your screen right now, or just get online and go to gbnews.com/PM.
And Stephen Dixon will be hosting.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it.
You don't want to miss that. No, you're going to be great.
It's going to be really good.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. So get your questions in to the PM. Now, families in Rudloe in Wiltshire have been left to live in mouldy and damp social housing after plans to replace their flats with new high-quality accommodation was revoked.
Yeah, Liam Halligan has this special report. Sorry, darling.
Very good.
It's raining in Rudloe, about 10 miles from Bath.
Hey Gina, how are you? Nice to see you.
Gina Baker's a young mum of 3, living in a home provided by Green Square Accord, a not-for-profit housing association. While she pays subsidised rent, Gina's desperate, because her home, in her view, is unfit for human habitation. Her housing association landlord agrees. 2 years ago, Gina was served with an eviction notice. The entire estate she lives on deemed substandard, due to be demolished. Since then, she and her children have lived with asbestos in her walls, serious rising damp, and extensive mould.
So, the mould at the moment, obviously it's been really, really bad. It has been really black mould. It has been cleaned. I have to keep cleaning it.
Count the letters. Wow.
There's a strong smell of mould in Gina's home despite her cleaning regularly. 2 of her kids have developed asthma, including baby Esme, recently sent to A&E due to serious respiratory problems. Gina says her kids live in condemned housing because, in her view, Green Square Accord is greedy and neglectful.
As far as I'm concerned, as long as they've got their money, that's what they care about. Because they're very quick that if you were to not pay your rent, they're very quick to say you've had a missed payment.
He's about a month old.
Gina's neighbour Tonya is another devoted mum, raising kids in a damp flat. Her cramped home was also set to be demolished 2 years ago, with Green Square Accord due to rehouse her. It hasn't happened.
So I got diagnosed with MS about 4 years ago, which is quite a struggle. It has its health problems, as in the cold, the temperature affects my MS, the stress affects my MS. My son is 5 years old, he's autistic. He has already said to me that he hates his bedroom because it smells damp and it's cold and it just isn't a pleasant place for him, which is sad because that should be a safe place for him.
Tonya also regularly scrapes and cleans mould from her walls and curtains, but it keeps coming back. especially at this time of year.
I'd love them to knock them down like they should have done in the first place. I don't think there's any amount of mould wash, any amount of fixing that they can do, because the problem is still there. They don't put a demolition order on a property for no reason.
The leader of Wiltshire Council, which includes Rudloe, is furious at how Green Square Accord is treating its tenants.
I think the housing that up at Rudloe is appalling, yes. If you look at, I mean, it's relatively old housing. It's clearly not being maintained particularly well. It's getting towards the end of life. It really needs pulling down and rebuilding, but that's no excuse for not maintaining it.
Green Square Accord were unavailable for interview, but told us, "Last year we made the difficult decision not to proceed with our regeneration plan in Rudloe. The health and well-being of our customers is our top priority, and we take reports of damp and mould very seriously. The asbestos in the homes at Rudloe doesn't pose a risk to the health of the customers living there. This, according to Green Square Accord, is, quotes, a small amount of damp and mould." Gina and Tonya profoundly disagree. Liam Halligan, GB News, Rudloe in Wiltshire.
Well, a written article plus Green Square's Accord's full statement regarding this is available to read now on the GB News website.
That is it from us for today, but up next, it's Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update with me, Annie Shuttleworth from the Met Office. We have amber snow warnings in force for some areas through today, and the snow risk will shift further north through the day, but also there's some very heavy rain to come, particularly across the south where there's a rain warning in force. But as that rain bumps into the colder air across parts of North Wales, as well as southern areas of the Pennines, the Peak District, we'll see up to 25 centimetres of snow accumulating. We've got some quite brisk easterly winds, so there's a risk of drifting snow and freezing rain as well through the afternoon. So a very cold feel across many northern areas, clear and dry across the far north. But in the south, even after a drier interlude for a couple of hours this afternoon, heavier rain will arrive once again through the evening, and it will persist through much of the night. So quite a damp night, but temperatures will rise as this southerly wind develops. So much of the snow will quickly start to melt across parts of Wales and the Peak District, pushing that snow risk by tomorrow morning into parts of southern Scotland and northern England, where it will be probably another very cold start to the day on Friday morning. That snow will push further north through the course of Friday, but we could see a further 15 or 20 centimetres accumulating across parts of the Pennines through Friday, as well as southern Scotland, and there's a risk of ice as well. Across the far south, it'll be a much milder day, and we'll start to see that snow melt, but sunshine will be fairly limited with highs of around 10 or 11 degrees. See you later.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
You have a president in President Biden who's not enforcing the law that was